Yeah, and also I still have you as the milk tank on the Ghastly.
Yeah, floating up there.
Yep. I have you
Yeah,
like that on the Discord Reactive because it's funny as fuck. To
I
just see
love it.
flying ooters in a gas of milk.
Hell yeah. I need to play more Pokemon Internet. Apparently, they updated it now with the newer gen, like
Mhm.
Gen 7, 6, 7
Yeah,
now.
6, 7.
Yeah,
Should be
yeah.
disconnected on.
But
Okay,
I need to play that again. Holy shit, what that was fun.
Why the heck is it showing me as oh, because I put myself as offline. That would explain it.
Yeah. Also, I think Slayer is still offline. Ash or
I'm
whatever.
Oh,
gonna have to
Slayer is,
restart
yeah.
my
he's
Give
in
it a
the
minute.
game.
Okay. I just needed to refresh this shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just restarting my whole entire computer.
Okay.
Ow.
Understandable. Have a nice day.
I mean, hopefully
I'm not taking my chances with anything breaking.
Nah.
No intro today. We're getting right into it. Let's go. Hi, chat.
Just skip the whole story.
Story these
Technical
nuts in your mouth.
difficulties?
You always have
Technical
technical difficulties.
Shut up. Shut up.
I'm just being honest, bro. Also, we got Q today.
So-
I'm dragging her into the night shift
Yeah.
with us. So she can get mad at me for killing people.
She's
Are you
gonna
gonna do
regret
the
this.
same shit with the bathroom again?
Yup, I'm going to kill anyone who uses my potty. Don't touch it. I'll murder
What
you.
if I use it?
And if we see another bear, I'm fucking him up. Motherfucker better not speak English or he's dying.
What if the employees use it?
English.
What if the employees use the bathroom? I'll shoot you too.
Yes.
Oh gosh, friendly fire, right? Right away, hell yeah.
What if my goose uses it?
Your goose is
The
too busy
goose
dying
goes bye-bye.
from disease.
How dare you?
That's literally what the game's about.
Okay, I the cue to the.
Wait,
This
oh yeah, be very careful. Slay is very jumpy with the pistol.
Hold on,
I'm
my
not
goose
jumpy.
said it.
I'm
you're
pumpy. Get it
trigger
right.
happy as fuck, bro.
I don't give a fuck. What you gonna do about it? Cry about it?
When I
Cry
tell you I
about
reset my
it.
computer, I reset my computer.
Cry about it, bitch. Cry harder. Cry harder. Harder.
Rahada.
Harder. Take my share chat invitation and shit it.
There you go.
Can we get weapons in this game?
Yes.
Yes.
You can get
Oh.
melee weapons. You can my twin high. Love you,
Can I
twin.
get weapons?
Hello.
Big wet smooch. Blah.
Oh, Slayer, they also
Assassin's Creed
apparently are
Mirage is on
Asian
YouTube.
furry in this game.
There's an Asian furry. What?
Yeah. The last time I
Okay.
played with Vash, nothing was fine.
You guys
yeah,
play
okay, I
without me,
remember
bitches?
now
How
what you mean.
dare you?
I remember now what you mean. I got confused also for a second.
These motherfuckers
Yeah,
played
the
without me. How
so he's
fucking
got a
dare.
cat face and like cat paws.
Okay then. Interesting.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we
someone's
can.
playing Pokemon Champions.
I kind of wanted to
Better
burn
get
him, but the only thing left was a
ass
pistol.
like a little- Wah, wah.
Okay,
Wah, wah.
this is your model for today.
Should I just host the lobby, I guess?
Yeah, so you host.
Yeah.
Okay, create new save.
I'm waiting for myself to log in. Give me 1 second.
Right.
Friends only. Next players.
Apparently there's updates on Steam
Game
and
is designed for
Discord.
up to 3 players. By starting, you acknowledge you are playing outside the intended experience. Yeah, I'm not garbage.
Is it showing me now as online? That's just what I want to know.
Starting lobby. Cow nobody is believe. Yo, word. I fucking swear that cow shows up again. I'm shooting that bitch. Fucking cow randomly appears. I would only believe you. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Who are you? Where did you come from? What?
Where'd you go? Where'd you come from?
Cotton Eye Joe.
We have lost so many good artists lately. I heard like what the fuck.
Just this freaking week.
Artist. You mean actors?
Yeah. Yeah, they are artists because some of them were
Well,
singers
yeah,
too.
I guess. Right.
Who has 3 this week?
God,
Yeah.
can we stop talking about it? I already had a mental breakdown like 2 days ago. I
don't
don't
know
know.
to break the
I
crazy.
shit you not. When I heard Tim Curry died, I fucking broke down.
Why is he being stupid?
That man is literally my childhood. Like Nigel Thornberry, fucking, he played in regular show. He played in everything that I've ever watched in my childhood, including
I
Ben
didn't
10.
know he wasn't freaking regular. I didn't know he wasn't regular show mate because obviously I saw it in Spanish.
He was Nigel Thornberry. He was in regular show.
He was.
He was Nigel Thornberry. Yep.
Nitro?
He sure fucking was.
God fucking damn! He got the best role for him.
He was Nigel Thornberry. He was the fucking one of the characters in Gargoyles, the Disney show back in the day. He was in
Oh yeah, I
so
remember
much shit,
Gargoyles,
dude.
yep.
Yeah, he
Why
was
is
the
he
black
on
haired guy.
offline?
Like a tall black haired dude. Fucking he was in so much media that I consumed as a kid growing up, and it's just like it felt like I lost like a second dad.
And somebody
way,
has
hey,
in my phone.
That's why the other day I literally couldn't
It's
stream.
Slayer.
I was too fucking depressed. I was like, no.
Cows disappear and your co-workers look at you like, what cow? I don't believe a single word you're saying. Say, saw no cow. What?
What do you mean? Oh, you're talking about the game, like?
Yeah,
No.
apparently every time you start it, you
Oh,
need
it
to
set
go
the
to-
voice activation. I have to push
Yeah,
it.
you have to manually change it.
I fixed it. I also had to turn the sound
No,
off
it's
down on
because you
this
had
game
to
because this shit is
roll.
loud.
Because you have the mic on the game
You see,
too.
but showing all my friends are offline. Why?
You're gonna have to close and reopen Steam because that's something that keeps
Steam,
happening.
yeah,
to
that's the
fucking
Steam
Wolfie.
stuff.
Yeah, it
The
happens.
Slayer
with
still
Never
sounds
mind,
like he has a
it's
massive
working
echo. I got massive balls. Does that count?
Bro, I think that's cancer.
Nah, I've always had massive balls. So unless I've had cancer for the last 30 years, I don't know, man.
Diablo.
I'm just very good at getting pregnant, you bitches.
Well, I'm sorry.
I mean, if you have your balls that big, it's probably you're not getting them pregnant. That's the opposite.
I don't know. I got
You're
one of them knocked up
you're
twice, so
Yeah, that's true. You're just accumulating your sperm maxing.
Hey, why
yeah.
don't you join your lobby?
I keep busting them, and they keep refilling so
Why does
quickly.
it not say it's disconnecting?
It's like in that Night Shift Nurses hentai. I'm like that guy who's like constantly producing sperm. He's got to masturbate once a day.
Nah, that not storing up the bus capacity.
Plus
I'm sorry,
capacity.
How do you fix Steam?
Call maxing.
Oh, I have to invite you.
Yeah.
There you go. I sent you the link.
Out and nothing. That should do it.
Yeah.
The balls capacity. Didn't you guys know pee is stored in the balls?
Yeah.
That's why my balls are so big. Because I have my peas in there.
Damn, bro. Oh, bro.
No,
By the way, I
especially
just
not
remember.
found.
Are you gonna play WTF?
Why does it say I'm disconnected? Hold on. I am
Oh,
waifu.
Tactical Force. Yeah.
Whatever. Why?
I saw that shit. I want to play Waifu Tactical Force.
I told you it's actually kind of cool looking. I mean,
Hey,
it
You
needs
told
polished,
me
but
about that. I didn't remember.
I
You
think
told
I
me
sent
about
it to
that.
you. Yeah, it's such a
Yeah, I
secret.
remember you sent it to me because I saw an ad on it from Gamescom because I have friends on Gamescom right now. I could be there, but I got fired. So yeah,
Fuck 'em.
yeah, fuck 'em. So yeah, I actually saw the gameplay. The demo is out and it's so fucking good
Yeah, I have like the full game because I got a code from.
because
back
it's literally
before it
just
came out.
Titanfall with waifus. They
Yeah,
literally just
it's
imitate perfectly
literally-
Titanfall.
Yeah, it's literally well, not even Titanfall. Well, yeah, I guess it's kind of like Titanfall. It kind of reminds me of CS:GO a little bit.
It's more like Titanfall because you have the mobility and the mechas. They just made it with waifus.
Wait, there's mechs now?
I think.
There wasn't mechs
Yeah,
before.
that's why I'm telling you, it's Titanfall. They're max now.
Oh my god, they added mechs. That's crazy. All right, now we definitely gotta play it.
I'll send you the max trailer. It's from the Gamescom, so yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, they must have added that recently because last time I
I saw
played
it.
it was just
I saw it on Go
girls.
Kart
It
stream.
was just fucking chicas with guns.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now I gotta want to play it again. Oh god, I got so many fucking games I just bought too. Oh yeah, and I got the DLC for
Here it
DVDs.
is.
Did you took too long?
I'll send you.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
took
I
too
did.
long, bitch.
What is Layur?
I got Mortal Shell
Boom,
2
boom,
last
Slagur.
night. I bought. What else did I buy last night? I don't remember.
This man is on buying spree.
I joined in.
Yeah, I spent $100 fucking.
Damn. I spent $100 fucking dollars, but on fucking meds.
I got Dead by Daylight course. Just that's why. I remember why I spent money now.
Hey,
I bought Fable
question.
Anniversary because I want to play that. I got SCP The Beginning, which all of us should get because I kind of want to try that. It's a multiplayer
Well, in the
SCP
beginning,
game.
it sounds similar. I think I know it. Let me check for it because it's
It's a
from
shooter.
a friend of mine.
it's saying session
Yeah.
cannot be found.
All right, I'll send you another one.
SCP, The Beginning. Here, no, it's not the ones I was gonna tell.
I bought
for
Mortal
my friends.
Shell
No, it's-
2, and I also bought a game called Big Titty Got Fatty.
Bro,
Hey,
obviously you got big titty got baddies.
Look, it was promoted on fucking Steam's fucking games that come out list, and also My Lovable Demon. You already know what those are.
Yeah.
Slay your chaos. You. And then I sent Q gift fucking shit to midnight
You hurry up.
as part of a commission
Right.
payment.
It's
She's
saying
making me an
not
art piece.
found.
I can't wait for somebody to be available for the commission. Not gonna lie.
Well, for good luck for you because that yesterday we got rid of the shelves we were telling you about. So next week she's gonna get her desk.
Nice.
Then we have to coordinate to get her tablet set up and everything.
Hey, so,
So,
question.
after
This
that,
is a
it's
serious
up
question, and
Yes.
no one's answering.
If you're asking for another invite, I sent you two
No,
of them.
I'm not.
I'm trying to ask for a flippant way of fixing what I'm running into.
Okay.
What do you mean? What is the fix? What do you need?
Steam keeps on saying disconnected.
Then you need
okay.
to disconnect from Steam and re-log in.
Yeah, okay. You don't. You have to, for example, you go on the tab
Or-
down there where it's
yes.
like the icons on the date of your Windows. Click on the arrow, show hiding icons. Right click on the Steam icon, exit Steam.
You mean the Steam icon?
Yeah, the Steam
Exit
icon. Like, okay,
Steam.
I'm gonna try to send you a screenshot of it.
Basically,
Hold on.
just go into your friggin' toolbar and exit.
Yeah,
basically
actually, the
close Steam.
toolbar. The word, yeah, the toolbar. Yeah. I didn't remember the word in English, but yeah, toolbar. You go here, for example, and the picture on images. The Steam icon, you press right click.
Is your internet working properly? Like, I don't understand why it keeps disconnecting.
And right click and you press exit Steam.
You
It's
said-
showing my internet's working in the corner. I can go on to everything else.
Okay, so that's weird.
Hold on, it's logging into Steam again.
Okay, yeah, you have to log in. That's good.
Alright, I'm gonna
Okay.
watch this.
What I just open Task Manager because yeah, that also helps, but the taskbar actually is like the fastest
Don't
way.
put dying on me before the final phase.
But yeah, also works.
Wait, does this game actually have a story now?
Messy data.
What game?
See, when I'm
Fucking Vice and Task
so,
Force.
Seems like I
Yes.
have
when I'm
all these
trying
up.
to join, it says
That's fine.
information session cannot be found. And then it disconnects me. Okay. I'm
10.
fucking gonna.
Maybe do the lock.
Oh, they added more
on
waifus, too.
your, on your friend, are you offline? You're like on your friends tab.
No, I'm
You can
online.
be online, away, invisible, offline.
No, I'm online.
Okay. Because I don't see you. I don't think I have you on Steam then.
Oh, dead.
Hang on, I'll check.
Is it showing me on online or offline on your end?
Hang on, I'm checking. You're online. It says
Yeah,
you're
no.
online right now. Invite the game. There, I just sent you an invite. Try it now.
Why isn't there a simpler way of doing this?
I'll let my little friend handle this.
Jason's joining.
Someone's loading.
Go.
Here we go. Who's joining?
Oh,
Finally.
there's two. There's
Wait,
We have loading. Oh, okay, yeah, no, it's working now.
Bro,
Whatever,
they're
it's not
going
that.
all out with this game.
I told you.
I'm happy I got in on the fucking the beginning. Then fuck yeah.
Yeah. I told you, wife, you
And
talking
we
no
all
force.
get
Oh
into-
shit, man, we lost her.
Hold
Did it
on.
crash, or did you leave, or what happened?
No, it just disconnected.
And where you get
Okay.
to the wife.
Oh shit, hit the wrong button.
Oh, you started. Yeah, I tried to I'm ready, and he just
I
started.
was trying to go back and I
Oh,
hit
yeah.
start by accident.
I think what happened is I was joining both times, but I saw 2 names that came pop up.
Okay.
Alright,
Seriously,
put back.
are we wearing
Hold on,
all
hold
pink
on,
then?
Do what?
Yeah, we all wore pink.
No, I was wearing purple.
I don't know what the hell I'm wearing.
Uh,
I don't even know if you can change the color. Can you?
Yeah, you can change the color. There's like a painting there on the bottom.
Oh,
You just
that's
change the
what
color of
that's
the
for.
shirt.
I don't know what the fuck that was for.
Yeah.
Why is anyone going
You
to?
should-
Oh my god.
I'm wearing purple. Don't touch my
I'm
color.
excited. Fucking shit.
Bitch
Oh,
ass.
How about you?
yeah.
Bitch is my color. You're red.
Red,
You're a fucking common rider, bitch.
Bro, there are Kamen Riders from different colors. There is green, there is
Well,
red,
too
there is
bad.
purple, there's
Purple's
blue.
my color. It always has been.
That worked.
Okay, we'll go red then.
No,
Purple or green? Hold on, you see my muscles. They're either purple or green.
Hey,
I'm purple now.
You're right now the fox bitch. You have to go
Yeah,
like
you
yellow.
Fine, I can
No.
be bright yellow. I don't care. Or blue, light blue.
You're the freaking Latina foxy girl.
I need to be more Latina. I need to darken her skin some more.
No, you're like a nice tan Latina fox girl.
Here.
Yeah, but it comes out too bright on the fucking.
Skinny
greedy
jackass, right?
There's a little more tint to it.
You can adjust like the lighting on the model software, like where you do the.
I mean, technically, yeah, like this.
Uh-huh.
Wait, where is it? Shit.
Because your models were always like too bright in general.
So I need to add more fucking darkness to it. Okay, I guess I'm zooming the fuck in.
Hello.
Who is mixed?
Who's missed?
Do you have it? Or do you have an open lobby?
Bro, you make an open lobby.
Oh, my
Fucking
fuck.
Christ!
Yeah. Oh man.
Kick. There you
Why
go.
don't you just make it friendly?
Oh, the freaking lobby, bitch.
Yeah. I was
Well, it's not
wondering
my
what
fault the
fuck
game
is
keeps giving
game come from?
issues. Friends only.
Fuck off.
6 people. Start lobby.
I would love
Scuff
to
be fucking
It's gonna
real.
freaking be chaos.
Brother, this guy stinks.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
Take a shower, bro.
Dude.
I shall with
Wow,
tomorrow.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
By the way, do you like this shirt I sent you?
Wait, what? Oh, yeah. That shit was funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so funny because I was with Mount that day and we saw this shop and there was a shirt about that cocktail. The cocktail is called Negroni.
Oh god.
And I immediately thought about
You should
Slayer.
totally get
I-
that shirt and send it to me. I'll just send you the money for it.
Where does the fucking work? We know.
Oh, I totally would. Just didn't question
Oh,
that.
yeah, we fucking know you
I'm
can
in.
take it to work.
I'm in.
Exactly. I would have.
I am- Bro, I tell you, if I see you one day like in real life, I will fucking give you
Shirt color?
a shirt that says I am Nigga #1.
See, that's the funny part is no one seems to remember. Like, a lot of people don't realize that I had the worst, like, one of the most conversation starting shirts back in like, college. I literally went to a Spencer's and I found a shirt. It was all Dookie Brown, by the way, but in big, bold fucking letters. It said, "I may not be Mr. Right, but I'll fuck you till he shows up."
Okay.
And let me tell you the amount of people that would start a conversation with me over that shirt.
I'm restarting my internet.
Such a great shirt.
Can you imagine?
And Q is gonna.
She's such a.
I'm restarting my internet. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Bop, bop, bop. Vibes will be ready early. She's ready.
How can I even open these?
And you guys can hear the game. Am I fucking audio. Update, probably. Whatever.
Yeah, update fucking. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I updated it last night too. And I was
Just
gonna fix it this
just
morning.
fucking Windows. We don't need you to keep updating shit.
Yeah, you
make
can
this
stop with
work.
the updates, man. We're over it. Fucking ridiculous. Yeah, because it set my fucking NVIDIA broadcast to fucking something completely different than what it should have been.
Dude, why are they even touching that shit? Like, just do the
I don't know
fucking
why they touch it. This
settings.
doesn't make any fucking
Keep the
sense.
settings like you are, man. We don't want to update and then we should be like, oh shit, now we gotta run into this shit again.
I gotta remember what is my audio. Right? I wanna say this one. It's like my fucking soundboard's not working. Well,
Can
maybe
I
it's
actually
just...
imagine that being a nightmare? Windows update and
No,
soundboarding.
that's audio.
I am never gonna
Okay,
financially
now-
recover from this.
Also, I gotta
my
get
God, bro.
I got this!
Okay, that was way too loud. Fuck.
How can I even open these? Ooh.
Ooh.
Ah!
I was watching this. I don't know if you saw the one I sent on fucking TikTok.
Oh, you this white
Oh,
one, yeah.
Yo, the which one?
The Fortnite one.
No. I thought an even funnier one. Hold on, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it on stream real quick because this shit's hilarious. Oh, it's so funny. The fucking Midoriya being retarded is hilarious. Oh, where are you? Media. Everything. No, it's not that. Fucking my hook. Where's my fucking thing? Oh, here it is. Sure, whatever. That's not what I wanted. This one, okay. Alright. TikTok. I put TikTok for some fucking reason.
Did this update fucking you?
No, I just can't type for shit. I'll try to type fast, so it never goes well.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Crying
that.
right now
If I
because my
type-
butt is so big and nobody understands how hard it is to deal with it. What the fuck? Okay. What is my For You page today?
And it's a stupid one.
Apparently. What the fuck, my guy? My For You page, it's over where it is. Oh, I found it. Hold on. I'm gonna show it on the stream. While we're waiting for Q to come back. It even shows that.
Mama.
Are you not showing? Oh, here it is. Fucking took me a minute. Make sure the audio is working. Yes, okay. It's just fucking funny, dude. Fucking happy rolling. I think I watched it like 10 times.
Glad our universes merged? Glad? So you're saying you're glad our universes merged? Glad? No, I am absolutely ecstatic! Didn't you lose your girlfriend to another universe? How can you be excited about this?
Well, first of all, ex-girlfriend, and second, fuck you!
Wait, you guys broke up?
Yeah, she overreacted to a minor misunderstanding.
What kind of
Minor
misunderstanding are we talking about?
Well,
How could you do this to me?
I thought it was you.
Are you mentally challenged?
Well, I'm pretty sure we've established that already.
How on earth could you ever mistake me for that?
that?
Because that is literally her quirk.
Are you seriously using her as an
He's
excuse
talking
right
about
now?
the other
Anything,
chick.
I'm the victim here. You know how perfectly accurate her shapeshifting is. How am I supposed to tell the difference?
Because that is a fucking animal!
It's a Pokemon, you xenophobe.
Who the fuck is even that? Yeah, you won't like the answer. Is that a dude?
Come back in 5 minutes and I'll let you know.
How many lines are you going to cross?
Okay.
We spend so much time asking ourselves where the line should be. But every line was drawn by someone who was afraid of what existed beyond it. Sometimes the only way to know who you are is to cross it.
No, fuck you and your fucking edit! We are done!
Weren't you supposed to be a hero? Did you hear me say that, princess? And why are you crying? He's so good with words, you'd almost forget he's an idiot. So you're saying...
Shit's so dumb. That was like the best fucking edit I've ever seen. He said, it's a Pokemon, you xenophobe. Fuck shit, have you dying? What the fuck, bro? What the fuck? Is that a cat? Oh my god. This is Bosch right here.
Why is this Spanish for you? Oh, okay, I know. I see what they are doing. They are getting rid of the license. I think is the name.
Please.
That's how in Latin America they get rid of license. They wash them like clothing.
That's fucked up.
I fixed it.
Okay, let's
Hey,
go.
you're here. Finally.
That's me.
Yeah, it happens to me a lot at my grandmother's
I
house.
don't know what that's.
Qué tóxico, respeta mi privacidad. Que mi WhatsApp no es tuyo, bájale a tu intensidad.
¿Qué intensidad ni qué intensidad? Le voy a meter un estrellón al cel si tú no me lo. Déjame revisarte el celular.
¿Qué?
¿Sabes con quién tú estás hablando?
Tú estás loco, tú compré un celular para estar revisando. Qué tóxico.
I don't know why I'm getting all this Spanish shit now. What the fuck, bro? What is my fucking
No,
feeling?
not because of me.
Probably, fucker. Stop shooting
No,
me.
I was not blogging on TikTok for a while.
Oh god.
I'm gonna say something
controversial right now, and I'm sure a lot of people are gonna.
Guys, meet my cousin. He's autistic and kind of nonverbal. What do you mean, kind of nonverbal? Well, occasionally he speaks the truth. Gay.
Gay.
What? Guys, meet my cousin. He's autistic and kind of.
Oh my god. Yo, you're vlogging. Look at him.
Oh my god.
You swipe left on my heart like a tight app. Two-step verification, but you knew the track.
Gum off to the
Said, I
box,
need
bro.
space, but the timeline's packed. Our flame died quicker than a birthday snap.
Fucking cholo ass.
Then you must be at least 60.
Your birth year, stars.
70. You cannot be 80.
Oh yeah, in the 1,087.
Oh,
You are one of the Dunedain.
You were one of the millennials.
Guys, I'm still hip with Gen Alpha. Look, 6 set.
Ah,
What do you
She got cut
mean?
off.
Okay, how about this one?
I'm trying to fix
Careful.
it. I really am.
Alright, I will
No?
then watch the memes. The memes.
I'm
Zin
really
Zin Zin
annoyed.
Sahu. Sunyan Ring. Geometry
Ring.
Dash. The Backrooms. Minecraft. Gumi
barely
Snake
tell us what
Boys.
the times,
Guys, I'm
Oh no, there's a heat wave outside and it paralyzes me into
guys.
doing
I am the diva.
Migu
You better hide your leaks because I'm coming. I didn't stutter.
I didn't
This is
stop
coming
that.
like this stuff.
Good, and of course I have a stripe.
What the fuck?
Okay.
Good, and of course
The other side.
That's
Oh
weird.
shit, the sea salt ice cream recipe. I need to do it in real life, bro.
Tried out a new mod. Turns out Core doesn't beat T-Rex.
that sounds like a good mod.
to
Holy shit.
respond. That's crazy. I've been murdered by a T-Rex and
Yeah.
fucking zomboid.
Yeah, bro, when it's Friday night.
Wait. What? Wow.
If we meet each other, we have to do the Friday night Why the bunny is
Excuse me.
coming?
Just wondering when my order's going to be out.
Oh, did you want to order something else?
No, just waiting for my salad. It's been like 20 minutes since I ordered it.
Fucking love these.
I think I know
They're
this food
educational
right in
and
front of me, mate.
hilarious.
I love these.
Wait, it looks like they're bringing it out now.
Yeah.
Why am I blue? Is everyone blow blue?
Platypus is like he got
What does blue mean?
Why?
What does blue mean?
Discord? No, I muted myself in the.
He looks like an old
in
kid's
gaming
chick
Discord,
after a bender.
Yeah, I'm on my iPad at the moment because Q is having some technical pros here.
Sorry, guys. Alright,
Don't
we're
just
just
gonna
let me know
watch
when you're done. We're gonna be watching.
You can feel. Guys, we've got a.
Alright, you know what?
Starting the game.
I'm
ready in the
going.
game.
That shit was noised, literally.
Wait,
I'm
what?
asking if you can hear me in Discord.
Bro,
Oh, yeah, I can hear
look
you.
at, I'm watching reels on my stream too. Someone just shit it like really wet. No
Hold on, I'm
friction,
watching.
all juice. Are you on my stream?
Hold on, let me.
Okay, let me,
Oh, shit.
let me reset it for a second. Okay, let me reset it for a second.
But you decided to take a gamble on the part and you genuinely hear that anger.
Steven is hanging.
Ew.
What the fuck? You heard that? You heard
That's
that?
disgusting. That's disgusting.
Oh no.
That guy's gay.
Not on the furry.
If he wasn't gay before, now
not
he's
on the
gay.
furry test.
If he wasn't gay before, now he's gay.
He's gay
If he's
now.
not gay, he's a furry. If he's not gay, he's a furry. Or both.
Boyfriend
What the
gets
fuck?
stung by 5,000
Boyfriend
bees
gets
and
stung by
fucking
5,000 bees and fucking dies. ASMR.
Fun fact, I was actually stung by like a whole. Fun fact, I was actually
That's a
stung by
lot
like
when I was a kid.
I don't know how the fuck I lied.
We should do things like this.
I don't know how the fuck I lied.
Safe.
I was 5 years old, decided to be the brave kid and go up near the fucking Yellow Jacket next. Near the fucking Yellow Jacket. That motherfuckers were not having it, and my dumbass wore shorts that day. Guess what happened? They stuck the fuck out my leg. Guess what happened? They stuck the fuck out my leg.
That's wrong. I'm 6'2".
Regretted that
200 pounds.
decision.
It would take approximately 2,000
Regretted that
bees to kill me. Well, let's keep going. Hey, do you hear something, baby?
Is he literally fucking?
I love the cheap
He's doing the whole
Literally
fucking ASMR.
He's doing the whole fucking ASMR. I'm just surprised.
Chat, which if you got me an ASMR script, I would actually do an ASMR. If you got me an ASMR script, this ASMR thing and I will do it. This ASMR thing and I will do Mine is same shit.
Please,
Mine
bro.
is.
Oh shit.
Oh my god.
Oh shit, yeah.
Oh my god.
She deflated as fuck, bro.
That's great. How'd you break the whole arm? And you farted. That's crazy. The whole arm. And
Yeah,
you
bro.
farted. That's crazy.
Yeah, bro. Oh, puppies.
Nice.
Okay, this road puppies.
Why am I
Nice.
getting so many farts right
Why
now?
am I getting so many farts right
Your
now?
fucking For You page is on some shit. Your fucking For You page is on some shit.
Literally full shit right now.
Bro, literally full
got
shit
the,
right now.
Bro literally got the faithful sheriff. Literally got the For You page of the faithful sheriff.
No, he's not. Bro, no, he's not.
It's your regular
Hey, yo.
What the fuck
Hey, yo.
is that?
What's that there?
He's
Oh
not
my
dead.
god. Fuck that beard. That man's got a whole fucking giraffe neck. That man's got a whole fucking giraffe neck.
That's
That man's a fish.
That's Sven.
That man's a fish.
Nope. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's right.
Oh my
highly
god,
recommend-
it's Black Jesus. Oh my God. Is that LeBron?
LeBron James,
Is that
yeah.
LeBron?
That's LeBron James, yeah. More Spanish stuff.
Kobe. Send this to someone for a reason. Send this to someone for a reason. That's adorable.
Nice. That's
also
adorable.
ASMR.
Yeah.
Anyway, are we ready?
Nice. Oh no, that's adorable.
Also ASMR.
Yeah.
I'm just. Anyway,
I'm the only one speaking now. Oh no.
Yeah.
No, I'm afraid.
I'm just been watching your funny ass shit.
I'm the only one speaking now.
Bro.
I don't regret it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just.
Watching your word funny ass. I'm gonna start doing more just chatting.
I don't regret it.
Probably
what that I'm gonna do is gonna share it on Discord so you can see it like with the, without the delay.
Yeah.
So you can just react all at the same time.
Yep.
Or we can just react to the Gunnar Graham channel.
Yeah, true.
Just let it go.
I
for a
want
whole
to do
week
like
and-
video reacts too, like react to fucking stupid ass videos. Like,
yeah, actually,
like the lesbian
actually, thanks
fucking
to
space
you, I
princess,
started
of
watching the
course.
whole series of the Moonwalk Up.
Dude, I think a new episode just came out recently too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've been seeing the whole episode up to now.
Hey, I gotta watch
Here we
the
are now.
next one.
Yeah. Hi, Q.
Welcome.
Hold on, I'm reading how to do this.
Welcome to the ship.
I have to probably taco. Hold on. Hold in here.
How about a taco?
You're attacking the tacos? Why are you touching my tacos? That's my taco.
That
ain't Taco Tuesday.
Taco Titan.
Taco Tuesday.
If we make a taco, like a huge taco restaurant, we're gonna talk it a Taco Titan.
I got that poo parasite. Those taco squirts that keep me up at night.
Taco piece fell between the keys. It's now there for life.
Thank you for the no reaction of the Niggy Town.
Nope.
I know it's exactly on Niggy Town.
It's funny. Niggy down.
Q. Let's go.
It's so funny how many cultures have the word, the N-word in their fucking language.
Oh yeah,
They
it's
get away with
surprising,
it.
like. Yeah, so so funny that the N-word actually comes from Spanish.
Yeah.
and they try to censor fucking Spanish color pencils because it has the N-word in it, according to them.
Alright, come in, Q. We're gonna go read the instructions on the book. What are you doing?
These
What the fuck are you
formatting.
doing? Are you okay, bro?
Yeah, the arrow's pointing at head inside.
Yeah, that's inside. You're fucking into a hole, you goober.
No.
What happened?
Because I'm not getting inside. The flipping arrow just pointing to the instructions at his.
Yeah. Oh, she's laughing because there is the fucking arrow here. Okay.
Yeah, and so and put arrows in literally pointing the instructions.
Somehow arrows become like the funniest shit ever now.
Alright. Come back here, Q. You gotta read the paper. Use trash bags to throw out the limbs in the storage room. Mop the blood, restock the incomplete shelf of boxes.
Let her do that by herself.
Yeah, let her do that so she...
Not beer.
Brought it in my car right after
beer.
I got a beer. Look.
Wendigo.
Wendigo. How about fuck no?
Cute.
I got a beer.
Ouch! I don't want the beer.
But
Did you say bear?
What do you guys think about the poster?
I think Q should come clean up his blood and limbs real
Hey,
quick.
do we have dinner or you want cheeseburger? I defroze some merluza, so I can do it on the air fryer, but I can just put it back on the fridge and we
how
can eat
do I
cheeseburger.
pick up? Oh, over here.
Yeah, with E. Yeah. You want the bags? Just pick up the bag. Put
Wait,
the
I can have
corpses on the bag,
cheeseburger?
and put it on the trash here. You right back here.
I'll have cheeseburger? Oh, I got you.
Dum dum.
Oh, you can actually jump up there? Oh,
Yeah.
wait.
The trash can right here.
Doesn't here?
Dumpster diving
Oh, there you
Dan was here. That's good to know.
What?
Yeah, I don't right there. Dumpster diving Dan was
Dumpster
here.
diving. Oh, okay. Dave the diver. You decide to change jobs.
It's dumpster diving Dan now. Oh, the mop's over here, Q.
The mop is over here. Yeah.
Where?
Q. She left. Thanks.
Right here.
Pick up the mop.
You're asking someone with ADHD to pay attention in a game.
I literally have ADHD and I shoot people, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And now,
All right, now
looks
pick up
like,
this box.
Oh,
You
you know
have to
what this
drop.
looks
Press
like?
G to drop it.
You know,
Look
no,
like
you know
you're
what this
jerking
looks
off.
like?
Yes, we get it.
No.
Yeah.
You know the
Look,
in
look,
Rick
look,
and
look,
Morty,
look,
what is
look,
it
look.
called? Oh, what is it called?
The sheep fucking machine in Minecraft.
No. It's in Rick and Morty. It's the weird looking thing.
I don't like this. I feel comfortable. Get away from me.
Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?
She's not gonna pick the box. Yep. She got distracted again.
Yeah.
Q, I'm literally right behind you.
Where?
Q outside.
Wait, what am I doing?
Gotta go pick up the box
the
and stock the
boxes.
shelves.
Yeah. Where do you keep? Come
I
here.
got box.
Well, she does that.
Unfeel this. Yeah.
Are you
This
gambling?
goes
Take
here.
the box out and feel. Yeah,
That
good.
goes there. That
Mhm.
goes there. That goes there. This goes here. Nope.
Guys, look.
Goes there. There. That goes there. That goes
Mommy.
here.
Mommy. Mama.
Goes there.
Mama,
That
mama,
goes-
mama.
That goes
Ma-
here.
It's funny because it looks like I'm hitting her in the back, but I'm actually hitting her in the
Goes here.
head.
That goes here. Look, I already have too much brain damage. I don't need no more.
Too bad you can't.
I mean, you don't have brain damage. You don't have a brain.
Fucked up. Fucked
You're
up.
lacking in the brain
That's
department
You
there.
know, it looks like noodles. I will not lie. It looks like
Is
very
that noodle?
soggy
I'm
noodles.
smacking you with my wet spaghetti noodle.
Oh, it is fun. Yeah.
Okay, read the instructions on the checkout counter over here.
Protocols, scan ID, blah blah, database, spotting consistencies, report, shut them.
ADHD.
That's not ADHD, that's just retardation. Alright, fine, maybe it's ADHD. All I got to ask you guys is one thing. What are those?
My best man.
It's the sheriff.
Why did he moan?
sheriff. Don't bring out the
can we talk
sheriff.
about why did he moan?
That wasn't. That
Yes,
wasn't the
that was
sheriff.
not the
That
sheriff,
was.
that was me.
That was fucking Vosh's soundboard. Because he's 40 years old.
Yeah,
Hold on, I got this.
sense
I
of
can do
humor
this.
of a boomer.
I'm smart.
can
Hold
do
on,
it.
I can figure this out.
Gotta play this with
I
you, and I
believe
gotta
in you.
convince Nams and Pepper to play with me. Oh yeah,
Name
you
is
have to play this game. It's fucking
Clyde
awesome.
Dawson. Okay. He has white mustache.
Not the cock.
Shit, I play with you
Often
too.
uniform visible in ID.
can
Often wears
play, yeah.
glasses. What are these
Damn, that's
glasses? Okay. What about wrong button? Occupation.
God damn it.
Uh-huh,
the
uh-huh.
tutorial.
What a best
Shut up.
town in the West. Just watched them last night.
So do you want kind of like a little breakdown of what you need to look for?
Nah, I'll figure it out.
Okay.
So one or more players still need to complete tutorial, so I'm not the only one.
I'm impaling his booty hole.
Oh wait, no, it might be me actually. Hold on.
Now we all have to do it.
Okay, I was like, it might be me still. Man, his head is
There,
a sun.
I did mine.
Look
You
at
just
that
have to scan
baldness.
the. You basically just scan this.
Look at this baldness. It shines. Right, like a
Queen
diamond.
is big bald head, make it shine more.
Beautiful.
Okay, who's live with doing the tutorial?
The cock is coming for your ass. Hell yeah.
Nah.
Sand says the only one that's done it yet. Oh, then Vosh is the only one that's done it yet.
I already did it.
You sure? You scanned this?
Yeah.
I did it. I did it.
Q, did you scan the? Did you
Yes.
scan the ID?
Yes.
I
All my
also
things are
did
checked
it.
off. I will even send a screenshot of it to prove that I'm not a liar.
Okay.
I'm done.
I'm sending a screenshot because now I
You was playing, right? Mounds right now is just spending all of her points just redeeming every single time he gets stuff. There you go, accept transaction.
There we go, done. I thought I had to look at this scan the thing. I guess I was wrong.
I can't trust you with the gun, okay?
Bitch, get my gun! I'll buy a new one. Fuck you.
Wanted it.
You can buy shit.
You still need to flashbang. Don't. Please don't.
Flash, come. Flash, bang.
Scan, fool!
Come here.
What are you doing?
Wait, what's happened?
I don't know. What the fuck was that? You motherfucker.
Damn,
Bonnie
Sin.
Clyde.
Oh, no, I have to, man. I have to, man.
Occupation, she's bald. We have
Give me the
to ask her
gun.
about that.
Give me the fucking gun. You can't be trusted with it.
She keeps us shade because it's easier to deal with it that way. Understand? Sometimes wear glasses. You don't have glasses.
Sometimes. Yeah, you have to be
Sometimes.
careful here.
You have to talk to her.
The devil is on the details. Literally.
Wait, what time is it? She was born in 19. I want to know that birthday.
Right now he is 93. He was born in the 67.
I don't trust her.
Why do you not trust her?
If you
She's
say
fine.
to shoot, we shoot. But
No, she's fine.
I don't think you should listen to me first off.
Word.
Don't listen to
You're
me.
listening to the wrong fucking person. You forget. She's like me. She'll shoot and ask questions later.
Hey, no. Right talk, okay?
Alright. One day, okay.
Get my car right after.
Oh, here's the store.
Oh, Sid, better stop touching my steer.
Oh, that's what you meant the other day. Okay, now I believe you. Now I believe you, Sin.
Yeah.
Flashbang? Hey.
It seems like
Oh, hello.
the
Thank
IKEA
you.
guys
Oh.
tell the truth.
I got this. Don't worry. I got this. I can
Nobody's using the bathroom.
Down the road, there's a store.
We can all
Might as well start. You don't help me? Okay, let's go.
I think you, let's go.
Q, go out and help him.
Yeah.
Where am I going?
Here.
Go,
Outside.
go,
Over here.
Go up there.
Follow me.
Then give her the bullets.
Let's go.
Should be fine without us.
Run, you run.
Who has the hand inside? Who did the hand inside?
It's gone.
He's gone.
It's gone. Like my sex drive.
Ew, 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 ew. What's that in the thing? What's in the thing? Oh, Spence will eject you if you stay in. I was staying in.
Oh yeah, if you stay for too long, it will eject it.
We have a customer.
Yeah.
Wow, just keep me in here right on. Rude. He pushes you out.
My God.
It's a mass of meat mass.
Oh yeah. Let Q deal with this.
I got this. Okay. Name Nathan Holloway. 6/17, 1971.
6'7".
I'll stop the show.
1994.
6'7".
Okay. You don't look like your picture, sir. Can I ask about that?
That's a question.
I'm gonna give you this. Do what you what you have to do.
Just aim for the head. It kills him. Alright, clean up the body.
Yeah.
Time to clean up.
Clean up time.
Hey. Hello, the woman.
Ooh, she's.
I mean,
how you doing, baby?
Oh, she called me a cutie. She gets to live. I don't care. She gets to live.
Really? Because she's a plumber.
Yeah.
Don't care. She called me a cutie. Don't care.
You don't want to know what happens when you let them go.
Wait, we both have guns? That's
talk.
Somebody bought a gun.
Do we let her live or do we shoot her?
She's a plumber, dude. Literally not the right person.
Well, the woman is dead now.
Good.
That's tall, dude.
Slayer is gay. Tell the world. Fuck you.
You
sitting there, you the bitch.
I didn't notice it.
Kevin Larson. It's an interesting name. Insured sales.
That's just Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh yeah. He's now an ordinary man.
I mean, he's retired. He's not ordinary again.
There you go. I updated it. It's better now.
So that
I trust him.
Spread the gospel. Have you spread the good word today? Have you actually talked to the man?
Oh, am I missing an item? Yes.
Yeah, I think he's Gucci.
Saying battle items, there's no more items.
Okay, now if you are done, just check him.
I did, but it's not allowing me to.
You have to hit the chat, cash register when it's
You have to hit the check machine.
Oh man, I would you love to ride a horse, the fuck? Cannot with you.
I don't trust that dude.
Why would he do?
He looks short. Funny. Yeah, you never trust a short person.
She don't trust the short person with the bow ears.
His name is Bartholomew Kessler. I'm sorry.
Kessler.
Bartholomew.
March 12, 1974, 342.8. Damn, he fucking.
Just give me that.
Animal secretary issues and software set up with other responsibilities. Perfectly normal, spacious outward activity. Standing seat task encourage forward positioning and now baseline. I assure you, I am not post-mortem.
I really want to shoot him. He looked at me funny.
He's fine.
Dude, I would try to
Wow,
realize
that's racist, you. You can't just shoot every guy in the fucking.
Because he's white.
Yeah, it's because someo's white doesn't mean you're allowed to shoot him.
Okay, we're done.
Our shift's done, leave. Stop that!
God damn, I need to shoot, bro.
Well.
This bitch is trying to kill me.
Hey.
Look at that, we made $105. No Cubans killed, surpassed quota. Let's go.
We need
yeah.
We need $20. Good remains still Slayer's next medicine build due.
Until potatoes next medicine build is due.
Swan, you will walk once again.
Human.
Wait, what is yours called?
Human.
Potatoes?
Mine is called Potato.
I have a duck.
That's adorable.
Yes, I am really good naming dogs though.
My goose is called Hot Wings.
Oh my god.
Hot Wings.
Oh, coins, I forgot.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Talk show.
What the fuck? You put a trap here.
Wasn't me.
I'm gonna fucking kill all of you.
What? Why am I in this? I don't know how to do that.
All your faults, damn it.
I don't know how it's my fault. I don't even know how to do it.
You
Ooh,
exist,
gambling?
that's why it's your fault.
Yes.
Oh my god. What's this?
Check the notice board, you goobers.
Oh, we got a hat. How do you get hats?
On the wheel.
West Bridge has been entirely closed off, so if anyone comes in talking about West Bridge,
Okay.
they're no good.
Everybody who comes from west is just
shoot them in the
They
head.
come from the west and they get bulleted.
You get a little guy. I'm a little guy.
Okay, someone needs to read.
Q. She's too busy fucking.
What?
That's what that
What am I
is.
reading?
The side, the
Where?
thing on the side.
The notice board that is shining.
Oh.
Oh shit! I got mad money.
West Bridge shut down. Blah blah blah.
Well, it's me, it's $10. $10 make you holla. I swear to. I will literally knife the traps. Stop it.
That's right fucking.
Oh, why am I spinning?
Yes, mask. Fuck yeah.
Fuck you. Mine.
I spun. Now why?
Okay, who keeps shooting? Oh, have you opened?
Googly
Oh,
eyes.
What the fuck do you want?
There
You can't talk to me like that.
Let's go.
Oh, who bought you, Dorothy?
Me. There were planks. We need planks. And
You didn't buy the landmine?
We got a
I
customer
bought
waiting
it.
out here, by the way.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, well, you have to suck at it.
Hold on, I'll help in a
Trying to
moment.
live in the dream.
Yep.
Shut up and hick ring me up already and squeeze you? Don't talk to me like this.
He's a
Mustache.
drunk man. He's a drunk man.
Generally dirty attire. Don't like the shirt. Hick ain't there either to embrace nobody.
Why does he have a pants?
Shut up and hit.
because he said that we don't have enough decoration right now.
Yeah.
Well, you can decorate
We need to
this
buy it.
place?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a fancy place, you know.
There's a shop place on
I
there?
don't
Oh my
trust
God,
this
there is.
guy.
And computer.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just don't.
Oh, we got the blind guy. He's with both eyes by white, so I think he's already a doppelganger.
Who, this dude?
Yes.
Yeah, he used to have one lazy eye, but
Yeah, he has one. He's blind from one eye, but he has his both eyes wide, so I think you can shoot it right now.
Wait, was someone just outside?
yeah, the photo showing. The photo is showing.
Yeah, I get to pump kids up every day. That sounds bad.
That's weird to say,
Life's too
bro.
short to frown. Yeah, why are you pumping kids up, bro? Blind in the left eye. Yes, sir. Both eyes are duds, but that just means I've got a fresh experience.
Someone need a flashlight. I have
March
two.
19th, 1951.
Yeah, you can just talk to
Okay, yeah,
them.
he's good.
He's unlimited.
Alive and loving it, buddy. Every day is a gift.
He's a doppelganger.
Wait, how?
Have you seen his picture? He has one eye closed. He has both eyes blind.
Oh.
Oh my God! Today for you. Happy birthday.
Hello.
Hello.
Please don't be a doppelganger. I want your number.
Hey, yo, mamacita. Oh, the person. Oh, god
Oh my
damn.
God, the way you said mamacita. Never again,
Oh,
sir.
who the fuck plays a beer up outside?
Who the fuck took the boards off the... You motherfucker. I will
did nothing.
fight you.
Occupation police
If someone
officer.
shits in his
Yeah.
bathroom, I'm shooting you.
Oh,
Just
she's
letting you know.
Surprisingly, on her
But
picture, she.
I was coming back.
What the fuck? Wait.
Fuck
hold
you.
on.
Seven piercings.
You
Okay.
just realized the lady was
Two,
naked.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Guys, there's
Seven
somebody
piercings.
outside out back.
Vosh was staring. Sid. Stop
Holy
looking at her butt.
shit. She's an OnlyFans girl.
Pretty sure.
Can I have the gun
Okay.
real quick? Not to kill
like
anybody.
I said, I'm
I need it
headed
for
to the
protection.
beach. Okay.
Yeah, sure she is.
Certain person, she's okay.
Hey, Q, come back here.
Don't objectify me.
Q, come to the back.
I
Come
don't
to the
have
back. Come to the
time
back.
for
Come to the
that.
back.
Head, they're just bursting. Yep, she's
Q.
fine.
Q!
She's offline now. Okay.
Vosh am I just watching?
Oh.
What?
I got it.
We only.
Oh, we all have to go out here, yeah.
We all have to go, yeah.
Hey, guys, come here real
Don't
quick,
worry.
though.
Oh yeah.
Q, don't get to.
Look, Q.
Wait, she
Be
don't-
gone, creature.
You got a friend.
Shoot him.
You ran.
Be gone.
He's a funny guy.
Alright, come on. He ran, hiding like his hand. Joe, get over here.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I don't know.
Q?
No
Where do you go?
one's- Oh, I just
Where'd you
can't-
go?
Where the fuck are you? Where the fuck are you?
Really? Okay, well, everybody else is here. There we go. Motherfucker. We're gonna have to save after this then.
Oh, hey,
Yeah.
dear friend.
Oh,
Oh,
shit! Why the fuck are
him.
you so tall?
I mean, that's a rude thing to ask a man.
I forgot about that guy.
Yeah, me too, completely.
How can you
This is
forget
tall
about
man.
me?
The tall man? Yeah, I literally forgot.
Do we finish the day in?
Yeah, we have to finish the day to save.
Yeah, okay. So we do that then.
Okay.
Meow.
Westbridge got awful. Shoot her. She's from. Oh, wait, what is it? Westbridge. So okay, kill her. She's a doppelganger.
Yeah.
She's from the west.
She's not from the west no more.
Yeah.
West
We
side.
ain't a westerns from here.
West side? East side only, bitch. Fuck off.
That's wild.
Ah, look, it's the woman that keep calling you low life slayer.
Oh yeah, your
Who
favorite.
the fuck called me? Oh yeah, that bitch. Fuck her. I'll shoot her
Let her
again.
live.
Don't tempt me.
Let her live.
Our friend came back.
Yeah, you have to shoot him again.
He's going again.
This is queen. This make this quick. More
If you don't stop putting that damn trap on my fucking ground.
Always with the light. Yes. Come off. Oh,
Can I
yeah,
just shoot her?
This woman wanna talk to you. This is definitely will slay you, woman.
Oh my god. Right there. Fuck, I want to kill her so bad. I want to murder this cunt so bad. Get the fuck out of my store before I shoot you.
What did she do?
She's just a bitch.
Oh,
She's insulting my intelligence and shit. Like, I know I'm stupid, but goddamn.
Slayer.
Well,
Who
right.
wants the guns? Slayer.
It's not Get doom! Goodbye.
Thank you, Slayer. You just.
Oh, we got the net guy.
No, yeah.
They never fake, I noticed.
No, they're never fake.
He's a doppelganger. Oh, hold on. Red Lobster. That spaghetti.
What spaghetti noodle?
You're what
With spaghetti noodles.
You got nothing to say about your age? That's a little concerning.
What's the age?
6'7". 6'7". 5'26", 6'7".
6'7".
I just went right on the highway. Pretty sure he's alright.
I need to put that audio on my sound score too. Oh. Who the fuck would...
How much you want to bet
One-
that fucking woman was a doppelganger?
Did you
What, the one that was in the underwears? Probably.
No,
No, she
the
was-
blonde bitch.
No.
The blade, the bitch.
I let the net guy leave, which I'm assuming he was one of the fucking regular
What do you
people.
mean the neck guy? The long neck guy?
No, net. Like, guy works for the
Net
company.
fake.
No, they never fake in them.
That's what never
That's
fake.
what I'm saying, so...
I never had.
It's gotta be the
them
blonde
fake.
then.
Funny enough. Yeah.
Don't take the other gun. Sorry, you. We're almost done.
You're fine.
We gotta shoot up this fucker
We
now.
know we're fine.
I fixed my settings. It's probably my settings were too high.
No, the game crashes. There's a lot.
The game crashed a lot on the first stream. My game crashed a lot.
Yeah, we had to restart it a couple times.
Yeah. And then crashed mid gameplay too. And then
I'll
crashed
go
when we
schedule
finished the
one, too.
story.
I'll play Schedule 1 in a hot minute. I wanna cook coke, man. Or meth, man.
You're gonna cook
See me.
Who's hiding there?
Me, bitch.
It did work actually.
Exactly. I don't know what way to be done.
No.
Yeah.
Wait.
Are you guys finding the thing, Bob?
Oh, yeah.
But it's always
I think it needs a name. Does it have a name? No, we need a name. We need more emotional bond.
His name is Entity, so we can call it Estella.
His name is Dave.
You.
Dave, the trash diver. He's really angry, huh?
We have 10
Well, I
people
mean,
for
the
the
shark in Fortnite name's Bruce, so I gotta give him something. I gotta give him something different than Dave. If Dave works for me. Look out for Dave! He's coming!
Dave Marino.
Dave Reno.
Daverino.
God dang it, Dave Reno. Dave Reno.
We have like 4.
That's everyone.
Dave Reno.
Well, you would have had more, but I think someone kept using them on someone else. I don't know.
Oh, they're limited. Though the bird traps, you can use them as much as you
Don't
want.
yourself up.
The landmines are limited use.
Wasn't that no? Reno?
Oh, are we putting
That's kind of the point.
Dave never gets bored. He starts crying from the corner when he gets bored.
There you go.
That wasn't me.
Yeah.
That wasn't actually me. That was.
Oh.
Fuck.
For once, it's shockingly enough.
That's wild.
Why? I'm on it. It's the damn truth.
Okay, let's
The
go
hell,
for
dude?
you to join.
Let me in so I can start touching things.
That
Oh,
sounded just as bad
That
as
sounds
the guy
disturbing.
talking about
I
filling
want to
kids
touch
up.
things.
That was almost as bad as the filling kids up in the comments. I don't know how I feel about that shit.
Q the Epstein.
That's
Epstein is crazy. QC.
Wild.
One day limit.
No, the next day.
1 day remaining.
Fish. Oh shit, she missing this.
Official warning from Ned.
Oh yeah, the dentist. Yeah. Next.
The infamous serial killer was a dentist. He likes to rip people's jaws off for some fucking
He's
reason.
fine. He can live.
Yeah, just like so.
Yeah,
Got a slack
the
broken
other
jaw,
thing.
white bloody bandaged hands, and cracking skin.
Yeah, sure. We did this man. It's fine.
I think he can live.
Oh, today Beth the killing as the original dentist, removing the victim's jaw from her skull.
You know, he might kill the entities for us.
No, he is the entity.
No,
You
he's
see it, do not hide, do not speak, and do not look back. Should you successfully contact your loved ones while you still can?
Okay, I'm checking here on the data from the.
What is his image to escape
The
and all found
dentist
from?
is completely separate. The dentist is completely
Dead,
separate
no
from
one.
the entity.
Yeah, that's
So
what I said.
basically he's. Oh, she was. a
Oh,
doppelganger.
guess what? The one with the fucking bra
Oh.
was a doppelganger. Claims to be going to the beach on a sunny day, but it's nighttime.
You see?
Really, bro?
I
You
My
fell for
brain-
that?
You see, I was like, she's
To be
naked.
fair, I was not reading. You know where my
Going
eyes
to the
were.
beach at night, my guy. Of course you were.
Yeah,
All right. What's the
To
menu?
be fair, my eyes were
What are you
on all the
sending
part.
me, Q?
Yeah.
Just spit you stuff.
I'm seeing that, you dork.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I won't. Don't ignore it, don't get mad.
That's fine. You like the balls on the rooster?
Oh my god, that's so fucking... What the fuck? The duck is
Okay,
cute.
let's go again.
The cow is questionable. The
It's
first
flipping
chicken
you
is kind
off.
of cute.
What about the duck? Or the goose?
I said the duck is cute. That
Where's the
chicken on the bottom is fucking questionable too.
It just has a
Fucking
hairy...
chicken
They're stickers from the shop in Steam.
nuggets.
That's what I spend all my Steam points on.
Dude, I have so many fucking Steam points and like, what do you roll the
I
shit
have
I buy?
I literally just sit down, go through the Steam shop, look for the funny stickers, and just buy them. That is what my day usually
I have to
is.
go through my Steam shit. That's all right. Keyword something.
Have you sent me away?
I did. Sent you another one.
Yeah, he didn't tell me what the fuck.
I shouldn't have to tell you what my fucking. Are you serious?
Bro.
Yeah.
We're all waiting, boy. What the fuck you mean?
Yeah.
Get your ass.
I'm just vibing.
Stupid ass.
Yeah,
This motherfucker. Talk about you should have told me. I ain't telling you shit. I figured it out.
Get the gun before he does.
Slap your balls on the table and figure the fuck out.
Who fucking did this? Nah, I want one of you to come here and tell me who did this.
Who did what?
Come to the back door.
Hold on.
God, okay, the one that is open was me. This one was not me.
Oh, that one was me.
Oh, God. I just tried to
Ow!
Good. You deserve it.
You and your goddamn closing out your goddamn bathroom, man.
Shut the fuck up and leave my bathroom alone before I get a gun and shoot you.
Was buried right here in Midtown.
Isn't there a back door
with
as
striking
well?
similar likeness,
Yeah,
has
there's
reported to
multiple
Dryden
bathrooms.
residents. Okay.
Guys.
Look at
Back
the.
rooms again.
Use the door.
Oh, there's a mail.
What door?
This one over here.
Bad news. Rats have started running rampant around the store. They negatively affect the store rating, so please catch them and throw them into the dumpster or find a way to dispose them.
Why?
Yeah.
They're friends.
Come here,
Hey,
rat.
look. Oh my god, this is a fake. Look at it here. Can already tell.
I just threw a rat at this fucking guy. Hey, I need the gun.
Yusef Murad.
I need a gun.
The hairstyle is not the same at all.
Yeah.
Indonesia was wrong with my hair.
Oh, you!
What the fuck?
Deserved. Deserved.
The quote does not match at all.
Yeah.
Someone kill him.
Yeah. Dead.
Hey, does someone want to come out here and deal with this guy?
Deal with who?
Is it a
I don't have the gun.
Our friend who left me a fucking heart.
Oh, fuck this man. I'm not gonna kill this guy.
He's talking about the guy on the dumpster.
He gave it a present, man.
Oh, fuck, what he gave you?
I'm not
He
gonna
can give you herpes for all I care.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Let me talk to
Probably
you.
do.
I mean, if he does, it happens.
Who is ordering so much stuff?
Yeah.
Probably fucking Sid.
No, I'm not even here. I was the one outside with you.
Alright, then who ordered the hose?
That was Cutie. What is she?
I did not order hose. I ordered a painting first.
You ordered a painting.
I ordered a painting. I did not order anything else but a painting. A painting.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Look how beautiful it is.
Yeah, I said this is a guy need to shoot off the...
You fucking bitch! Now, put it away! Put it away! We don't need it right now! Stop putting it in the doorway, fucker!
You, I have faith in
I'm gonna fuck you up.
Hey, there's someone in the water. Hey, someone in the bathroom.
There's someone in the water? I figured
No, there's
there
someone
would
in the
be.
bathroom.
Hey,
Look,
somebody
here.
is in the bathroom?
You can see their feet. There's someone
That's
in the
Sid,
bathroom.
apparently.
No, there's someone else that was...
No, there's someone in the bathroom. I'm not going to say there was someone. Oh.
Oh, it's fake
You
Sid.
fucking whore. Give me the gun. Give me the fucking gun right now.
Run, lady,
Give me the gun.
run.
Give me the gun. Give me the gun. I swear to God, if you don't give me the gun.
You run.
Give me the gun before she gets away. Fine, I'm buying a new gun. Fuck you.
She's
I don't think it's a new gun
She's
yet.
walking.
You sure about that? Money now.
We would if people would do the customers.
If you give me my fucking gun, you bitch.
Here, I'll be in charge of customers. I'll be in charge of customers.
Okay, I
Trust
have
me.
faith in you, Q. I have faith in
Yeah,
you.
trust
It's-
me.
Okay.
Okay,
Who
who
has the
keep
gun?
port out the door at the back?
What do you mean, do I think you're older or younger?
Who has the gun, by the way?
Me.
I don't know.
He's a doppelganger. Give me a gun.
Yeah, I'm coming. I took him
Give me the gun. I was gonna be an issue.
Cleaned up the water. Oh, there's a rat. I saw that rat. Where are you?
We all know that I'm good at shooting shit. Just give me the damn
There you go,
gun.
rat. And a naked dude.
Holy shit.
Is he naked? Really? No, he's just shirtless.
Oh God.
By the way, no
Here's
shirt,
one
no
here.
shoes, no fucking service.
I am ready to do my duties.
Give my fucking gun. I'll kill you.
Oh fuck! You almost got me.
Hey, did that
Almost
person
got
just
me.
shoplift?
Nah,
No,
there
they-
would be a sound.
It will make a sound, yeah.
Tommy Delgado. Tommy. Hello, Tommy, you have no
Why is
shirt.
there a
Let's talk
bottle on
about
the
that
floor?
first. Don't worry about it.
Let him live his life, man.
No, I'm not going to lose life. Where the heck are your clothes? It's really hot. Let me grab something for Catherine quickly so I can head home. Who's Catherine? Can you look at people's names? Oh, we can.
Yeah, you can.
He's literally fucking doppelganger. Like, whoa.
Da.
Give me the gun.
Catherine alive.
He has no
So,
shirt
hold
on.
on, I was typing.
He's a doppelganger.
Cause of death unknown. So Catherine Delgado is dead.
Exactly. Give me the gun.
All I need is-
You take too long.
I was bringing.
Fucking
Look, he's
him.
back here again.
Well, he's back.
Hey, him again.
Yeah, how much you want to bet he's the doppelganger too?
No. Let me talk. Let me talk to him.
Nah, he's probably the real one.
Yeah, probably.
More than likely.
Gotta be
Yeah,
careful,
happened to
man.
us
They're
already.
everywhere.
For some
I feel
reason,
like
he should
someone's watching
still
because
not
they
wearing
are.
his shirt.
Yeah, he's weird. I'm still gonna ask him about that. Clothes. I don't do shirts, man. They got tracking fiber in them.
I'm with this man, Tommy.
Job, I got a mission, man. Guess someone's got to keep people informed. You know that doppelgangers are more than just chopping on people, right? It's stuff from your fears, insecurities, and guilt. And I've heard if you let that negative emotion overwhelm you, the doppelganger will
Wait,
take
let's
over
ask him
your
about
body.
his sister.
What the fuck?
Slayer, look at this Slayer.
Yeah, you wouldn't give me my fucking gun so I can shoot the bitch.
Catherine
You cunt.
Delgado.
Man, we don't know.
Take away all my fucking fun, why don't you?
What? Killing innocent
How do you know about her?
Yes.
You're one of them, aren't you? Oh, he's scared now. I think he's good. I'm bagging him up.
Yeah, he knows she's dead, so. That's the real one.
Bye.
Again.
Hey, why is the bathroom open again?
I don't know. Why does they keep buying shit and not letting anybody else buy anything? How about that?
I don't know.
Stop
Yeah,
buying shit! No,
haven't been
you're
on
not.
the fucking
No,
store.
no, you're not allowed to touch
Oh,
anybody's
we got
store
cat
anymore.
ears. I want
Fuck
to get
off.
cat ears.
I haven't been at the store.
Finally,
Hi,
I have a
yeah.
weapon. Come here, Sin. Where are you, Sin?
He wants to beat up his subordinate.
Where are you, Sin? Bitch. Sit your ass down. Stop touching my shit.
Oh, sorry, sir. Let me help you. I got you. Your name is Colin.
Shoot me, I dare you. I'll fucking end you.
Okay. Colin Shirley.
Hey, what's up, man?
I don't like him.
Is it
Kill
this
him.
mirror? Is his neck too long? August 18th is his
Bye.
birthday. Shit's done.
Nice.
No doppelgangers. We're good.
Why is there just milk on the floor right here?
We need that.
Free to
trash
ask
can
questions.
You need trash bag? Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got it.
Can someone fill up
Robin?
the one that is not full yet?
What the fuck does it even mean?
Oh, someone shed a thing here.
Bro, who keeps taking? I swear to God. Put my boards back on the damn door.
Your bowls.
My balls in your jaw.
Oh, we need to restock. Let me go grab a box.
Fuck you up.
Sure, you
Stop
live-
letting people shit in my bathroom.
you live-
If they shit in my bathroom, I'm beating them with the bat. Just so you know.
That's a new typo with the position one.
Oh, man, it's gonna happen.
Shit,
Fuck.
how man with the bat.
Stop.
Just that.
Hold on, I'm restocking. Give me 1 second.
Maria!
I had to restock. We want to do it tomorrow. Put that back where I had it, Vosh.
Put the gun back where it belongs,
Fine. Put it there.
bitch.
Let's go.
Hey.
Personal spoons.
Pick up.
That's, see, no humans killed.
Yeah, we did it right. That we got no doppelgangers either.
Yay, now we can
We're
take
so
care of our
smart.
animals. Hit bill.
Of course I'll pay the bill. Why wouldn't I?
You pay the bill to make it seem alive.
Now we can join our
Hot Wings
shift.
can join our next shift.
Yeah. They'll eat the bodies.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy I get to watch Hot Wings.
Yeah, first Tommy was the
You get
wrong
to
one,
watch-
and then we got real Tommy.
Yep. You get the hot wings that eats people.
Yep.
Where is he?
They clean the meat for you.
It's right there.
I need them. Where?
Got Swan hot
My
wings.
No, I don't care for you. Where are you?
I love how.
Don't talk to
you have
Slayer
a
like that,
nice-
bitch.
Hot Wings.
You
Where the hell
actually
did it go?
named it Hot Wings, so
Yes. What do you mean?
Literally, she named one of her fucking pals Hot Milk. Why do we
I
ask
have hot.
fries?
I have hot wings, hot milk. So we now have gas.
Oh, yes!
Yay! I get to
And we're
find
checking to see
pedophiles
if
again.
If their car has anything.
Oh, but the Belfire's back.
Pedophiles
Yeah,
coming
okay.
back,
Oh, wait.
yes. Alright, come outside and read this
Yes,
song.
We have this, yeah. Okay. Oh, wow.
I'm just hearing someone being heard back and
I
forth.
swear
What
on
the
my
fuck
fucking life, why do you keep putting that up?
happened? We got farmer hats.
Oh,
Why
we
is
got a
farmer
farmer
hat?
hat!
Yes, let's go!
Back to the rice
Farmer
fields,
Town.
motherfuckers!
Farmer Town.
Let's freaking go!
Send it to the rice fields, motherfucker! You're funding, you're funding!
Can someone come out? We need to do the gas thing.
Q's gotta come out and do it.
I'm coming.
I'm gambling.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants
My
gas?
fault that you're gambling. The fuck?
Who wants
You
gas?
gotta read the note.
Oh.
Read the note, fool.
That's a
Farmer, that is
Just
deep.
walking out
Yeah,
like
you think?
gas. You have to be. Oh, you wanted to get gas. Stop.
Someone's gonna farm more.
Shut up.
Okay.
I'll tell you nothing.
He did a lot. He's just taking me
Not yet.
That's what he did.
So here comes the car.
Signed, sold.
I can look at them. Let's see. Sir, I need to check everything you own.
Why are you?
Go check the hood. Let's take a look under the hood.
Oh, there's paper.
He's got guns. He's a gun smuggler. Midnight news. Doppelganger continuing to ravage America throughout the night. Doppelganger sightings increase. Experts advise checking ID and personal details when interacting with strangers.
Who are you?
Yeah, he'll be.
$13 of gas
Take pleasure
to
in
make it
executing
snappy on the
missions.
can?
Remember the license plate matches anyway? Oh, shit. 04 LJ.
It's a blue
Blue station wagon, dirt marks on lower exterior, detail updated weekly. Yep, it checks out.
Yeah.
Wait, there's two serial killers?
Yes. The doppelgangers, the dentist now, and
Would you
soon
consider the doppelgangers?
Okay, well.
the doppelgangers.
I don't think they did
I'm peeing.
Hey, cute.
He is crazy. he's a tutorial, so he's awesome. Man, that guy saw.
What t-shirt contest?
Hey, wet duck contest.
Already.
Yeah, I winning that. Hey, they got any.
Oh, the fuck? Who did that?
What the fuck just happened?
The dentist was here. I had to shoot him.
Oh,
Crazy.
yeah, he was holding a quick guy.
Unemployed, huh?
Without showing cute, is that thing?
Sorry, if I
Now you have a
move,
strong
he actually will kill me.
Fuck face, unemployed.
Just talking you for the rest of the night over there.
Complete loser.
I know. I've been working on my car and sometimes sleeping in it too.
Okay, so he's a complete
Somehow
loser.
married.
He's a complete loser. The fuck is this guy?
Wait, he's not speaking with the lisp though.
What teeth?
is he not?
Oh, right, yeah, he got it.
He's not speaking with the lisp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Hell yeah. Hello?
What's up, Moron? It's the boss. How you doing?
Boss.
Good? Good. Well, I just took a glance at CCTV footage. Mind telling me why shit little rats are coming out of the bathroom?
Yeah, I love how they are bugging out. They're probably all trapped on the.
Really?
I'm gonna hit 46.
Don't worry, I got him.
Oh, there's some over here.
I've killed people.
Bunch over here. Bunch over here. Turn around.
Hang on. Don't worry, I'm the one in the back. Sorry. Got him. Get away from my bathroom. Get out. I didn't kill him. I just taught him a lesson.
Oh, fucking. Fucking Norbert.
Oh, it's lemonade.
I didn't kill anybody. I didn't beat him. Didn't go away.
What's it there?
We don't have to
My
question
dog.
it, okay?
I was like, where's my dog? Why you eat the rat meat?
Are you hearing a rat?
Yeah, I'm here a rat.
Been working all
Wonder
day.
why.
Finally got to grab some snacks and be back and chill.
Do you see it in my
Very
hand?
okay. Short.
Oh, that? Nah, I didn't mean work. I was working on fixing my fence all day. Neighbor's dog went on a rampage and tore the whole damn thing down yesterday. Shit was hilarious, though.
According to this, he should be short.
What the hell, I guess I... Can I finish reading, bitch?
Here.
God damn, I'm trying to
There
narrate
we go,
shit.
These are presents for you, Slayer.
We got one of the favorite guys, Michael Jackson.
Hell yeah.
Drop the rat.
Ow.
Drop him.
No, it's mine.
We're gonna get rid of that fucking rat. Get rid of that rat. Give me the rat. Kill it. Give me the rat. I just dropped it. Give me the rat. Give me the rat. Who the fuck? The guy's moonwalking again. I don't like it.
Yeah, buenas noches, amigo. Don't mind me, this feet one stop away, baby.
Jack section
I said
worker.
amigo, it means
Now
friend.
it is.
I think he's cool.
He's cool, yeah.
Born 1933, 60 years.
He's
Still
shorter
moving
than
like
me.
I'm
He's good to
20.
What?
Not sure what to
Did
say
you
about that,
that
amigo.
because he's shorter than you. He's
Yeah.
Having any clothes in my bag is good enough for me. Bald spots one shining, and but the brain still remembers every step. Ah, fuck it. Get out of here, you fucking.
Service, I want to buy a rat.
The gnome's here.
No? Where?
About to be here, he's outside. Or lemonade's outside.
I don't see him.
Well, he's not here yet, but he will be here.
Ew, 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 You guys gonna have good food, yeah. Ow.
It's no wonder our animals are dying.
I'm on
They're eating fucking
Could we, like,
flesh.
not kill him?
Yeah,
There's a healing thing in the back.
Doppelganger flesh. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, tofu!
He over here.
It's tofu!
He even has the IT server stock.
The poo poo, the doggy doo. He checks out. He checks out. He's a dog. He's roughing.
If anyone kills him, I will murder
If he speaks English, it's not good. He's fine.
Yeah.
If he was talking English, we'd have to kill him.
I mean, I'm impressed that we have a woman with a missing hand.
Yeah, there's one person that is missing a
I
hand.
think that's a fake.
Let's wait.
No, there is a character that's missing a hand.
Yeah, is it bleeding?
Question, can I
Yeah,
buy
but
one
she
thing?
shouldn't be bleeding.
What?
I don't
What do you mean bleeding?
She's
Oh,
bleeding
shit.
on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Here, that's better hand.
Here, I'll kill my rat now.
Oh, right. Yeah, people are always asking about that. I was born missing this hand. Yeah, well, you're bleeding, bitch, so try again. Sheriff.
You put
I was so
head.
confused. Like, oh,
How much money do we have still? Okay.
careful,
Well,
Sheriff.
no,
Can't be a
it's because
doppelganger.
you
Yeah.
spending every single bit of it.
What
Hey,
did
I'm
you
back.
what did you
How's
I
that
saw
working out
one
for you?
thing.
Well, you're still alive, so you're doing
I
better
saw
than most. I'm proud of
one
you.
thing.
Not many are willing to take a job that dangerous. Your job is as dangerous as mine, but you don't get the same respect that I do. Ah, well. You got my respect. That means anything to you.
I'm gonna restock the shelves.
Okay, I'm gonna check out Occupation Sheriff of the best town in the West. Just washed it last night. Good luck finding. Where you go, bitch?
She was going to the bathroom.
Yeah, Chef, I bet she was. Got it, don't I? I look damn good at my photo, don't I? Sure do, Sheriff. Sure don't say sorry.
Guys, there's blood in here.
Where?
There was blood in the bathroom anyways. Let's open these and close it back for later. Oh, no doppelgangers. Okay, no need to close it then.
Yeah.
Why me?
Sorry.
All
I was just
the
swinging.
time.
I was just swinging, man.
Every single time I get shot.
Someone's getting far more, I guess. Pretty much. Look,
Okay.
189. No human skill. We're doing fucking good in here, huh?
Yeah. Rub it in.
I check
Rub it in that I'm a failure at fucking not killing people. I'm sorry.
Well, you see,
it's
you
just
know how you
so
guys are
fun.
you know, you guys haven't given me the gun. I have not been given the gun back.
I have a baseball bat. I don't need a gun.
There's bats. Hold on.
Yes.
There is. We have 3 guns in total now.
Yeah.
We have
And
1
got a
revolver and 2
sledgehammer.
pistols.
Can
And a sledgehammer, so everybody can have a gun.
Sure. You can have a gun and I'll have my sledgehammer. It's a blood moon!
Oh shit, it's blood moon.
We're gonna get attacked regardless, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
I got it done.
Just remember, if we serve doppelganger, there's gonna
Yeah,
be
the
an
more
attack anyway,
doppelgangers we
ladies.
let go, the stronger the attack
Who's
is.
this?
Yeah, there's gonna be, yeah.
That, you have to deal with it. That's the dentist. That's your friend.
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh yeah.
That's friend of the dentist.
Mwah.
Okay, everybody read the damn thing.
Listen up, me, man. You may
I'll send an email. Urgent blood moon. You know, we're aware.
I hate that sound, man.
You stay there. Protect. What? What is that?
The email, you have to read the email.
Hello, how are you today, Mark?
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Maintenance supervisor. Indeed, I am a maintenance supervisor. Are you really? This is in fact me. 22nd date of the 11th month of the year 1958. Why can't I just say it fucking weird like that? That makes you want to punch you. I am in fact alive. Whatever makes me comfortable. Alright, I think he checks out. Why are you shooting?
Q.
Cut it out!
Why are you shooting? Okay.
You let someone in my bathroom! No!
My fault.
Fuck you! Oh! My turn! I'm gonna beat him. Where is he?
Oh, he's shooting.
The dancing dude! You don't hear that? Oh, it's a music. Never mind. I'm tripping. I forgot
Yeah,
about
you
the
always
bucks.
are.
I forgot what the bucks. Mateo. It's me! I grow real food. Fuck you, bro.
Hey, it's you.
Fat dirt beats, I mean, nothing. What's a toothpick?
Go in my
Wait,
hand.
what?
Not
Always
Shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. Oh my god, dude.
toothpick. Oh my god, What's he fucking in the piece of shit? Apologies.
Wait, who has guns and but we should have 2 guns and 1 extra.
I don't have a
I have a gun.
You have a gun.
Okay.
I have a gun.
Oh, boss, I buy
This is
this one,
can
please. Yes, boss, dishwasher is my job. English grammar is small problem. My life is big problem. I focus on life. Okay, so grammar shit.
How is hands hold on? I'm
Hands
looking
like
at
this
his hands.
form dishwashing. Yeah, look at his hands.
They're white. Is that considered a callus?
No, they got red on them.
Have you seen a callus?
You know what a callus is, bro?
Okay, I was looking at the back.
Recent forehead scar. Yes, boss. I tried learning
You
bike.
really want to
Learned riding
test
bike. I
ankle
fall many times.
Oh, from the side, if you squint a little bit, he looks
Computer
like
says
Elon Musk.
26, but I actually 27. Government don't know my
He is a spy.
Wait, how old is he?
Well, if he was born in 67 and it's
1967. Wait,
1993.
So he would be. Would he be that old?
He'd be 30 something, wouldn't he?
Does that
No,
look
wait,
like
hold
a
on.
30-year-old?
Yeah, no,
No.
17, 27, no, 20, yeah?
Looks like
28?
20-year-old?
He said he's 27.
Hold on, we need to double check this math.
6, 7, 8,
Yeah,
9,
somebody get a
30,
calculator.
70, 73.
Wait, you're doing it backwards. Why did you do that? What if you're the doppelganger?
No, it's correct. It's 27.
Wait,
yeah.
question.
Be positive.
Yeah, I
Alright,
just
fine.
made a math
Is this broken
calculator.
English?
Yeah, he's speaking
He speaks broken English, yes. Whatever, let's go.
Big trouble, yeah.
Big trouble in Little Tokyo.
Oh, she has no face.
Holy shit! Q, come look! That's no face! What the fuck? Oh, sorry. How'd she just walk in with no face? Like, that shit ain't fucking normal, bro.
No one can throw down my knowledge.
got
Janet
an
Davis,
OG
when she died. Can someone tell me when Janet Davis died?
Janet Davies?
Davis?
Yeah.
I found it. She died 1940. Oh, wait. Cause of death, mutilation.
Yeah, mutilation.
Did it say she died of
Shoot him.
Kill him.
No, he's lying.
He's a doppelganger. He's a doppelganger. You see that post on the computer about the blood moon? Yeah, boom, 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 just Wait, what?
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Fucking shit went inside of the
Wait, you put up signs?
Yes!
You have to fight him though.
Freak DJ, I can't, bro.
By the way, Q, come here.
Okay. Where? Inside or outside?
Inside.
Inside. Where?
Fucking can't.
Back room?
Fucking
Back room,
free PJ.
Okay. Just check. That's
okay,
it.
I don't try to talk again in that. They are completely not
Nothing?
Where? Oh, he doesn't paint.
Oh,
Yeah, the
Also,
corpse was
Q,
here.
you need
Remember
the
the
heal?
body-
Use that.
The corpse was here.
Why?
Look, if I die, it probably will be by you guys killing me. I'm gonna be so real with you.
Call it dude. Yeah, I'm making out with a high
I've been shot so many times.
This guy's leg looks shorter than the other.
Sometimes
Am I
people
tripping?
technically human bodies are like that.
Yeah, it's just that. It's just
Human
like
bodies
that.
are like
He
that.
kinda in the floor though, so. But I say it's a person. But I think you can double check.
It's getting enough to know that some institutions hide things from us.
Let me look at him.
Very observant, aren't you?
He smells like a human, so I think
Often wears a beanie. What about my beanie? I don't have one.
he smells.
He doesn't have a beanie. But he often wears a beanie.
I just wait. What was that?
I don't know, man. That seems a little fishy.
Yeah, see.
I love how I didn't even know.
Well, it's already hit him anyway.
Oh, man, I do love the horse. He's really good at vlogging, huh?
I don't know. The fact that he said I don't have one instead of I'm not wearing it today made me a little suspicious.
Hey, it's a supermodel.
Remember, devil's in the details, bro. Devil's in the details.
Yeah, and see, it's a supermodel on this thing.
Oh yeah, where?
Behind you.
That is not a supermodel. That is Karen. You look tense, darling. Smile. I don't bite unless you ask nicely. Hey, no, she's a streetwalker. She's a streetwalker. I pose, they pay. Sometimes I even keep the clothes on. Yeah, she ain't no model.
She's a double dog.
Silver suits me, don't you think? Brings out the eyes.
Yes, it does.
Fading rose tattoo. What? On where?
Wait, there's on her side, the inner thigh. Yeah, it's there. Oh,
on the right thigh or?
Oh, fading rose on the right side. Yeah.
Wait, I want to see. Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah, it's correct.
Excuse me. Hello.
I never saw.
All the more for you to look at.
Oh.
My legs are long, my hands are soft. Anything else you'd like to catalog? Yeah. What the meat curtains do, baby girl? What the meat curtains do?
I'm sorry, that person's trying to get in the bathroom. Can I shoot them?
No.
Go for it. Yes, you can. We don't lose points. It wasn't a customer. He was a fucking degenerate.
We lose money. That's the thing. We lose.
We still won last time, didn't we? I don't want to hear it.
Back conversation.
Of course I'm alive, so you can feel my pulse if you don't believe me. My picture, why you like what you see. Wait, what color is her eyes?
Brown-ish.
Okay, what color is her eyes in the picture?
Brown, almond. Okay, the picture.
Wait, is that math?
23 looks good on me, don't you think? Okay, 1993, that checks out. Yeah, that checks out. Still assassinating I can take it off if it helps your investigation. Alright, you know what? She checks out. Also, here's my number. Call me. Call me, baby girl.
The tower went off.
Yeah, because the entity's coming.
Okay, there we go.
The big
And he has been alerted. It will arrive in the third.
Close the damn door. Yeah, start trapping and locking shit up. Trap board.
Be careful putting out the mine in the middle.
In the middle.
Be careful here. Do not walk here.
Careful on the inside.
God damn it. Of course you put it down right and walk through the damn door.
I put it like a few seconds ago. I was just
Yeah,
warning.
you said it as I'm walking through the door though. We don't have any more boards, do we?
No. I bought more boards, but I don't have
here. I'll take it.
Okay. Where are they coming through?
What was that?
Me take the board now? Take the board here.
Okay.
There you go.
By the way, I don't have any weapons, so good luck.
I have a gun. You can count on me. I'll protect you.
I guess we're gonna have. Yep. They come pretty fast.
Where are they? Come.
Right there's guns.
Oh, they're babies.
Oh yeah, baby.
Talking about babies, my baby is back.
Yo, baby, back real.
That's the baby.
Yeah, that was a baby.
That's
assholes. What the
Anyway,
fuck?
I'm gonna go play this.
You guys suck. Give Molotov for a reason. You dicks.
So funny.
Oh, perfect. Oh, man.
Take this up. This right.
Fucking got bullied for no reason.
Yeah, for no reason. Are you sure?
Yeah, bitch.
Right here.
Okay, let's clean everything here.
Oh, you got
There is some
trash.
blood over here and some meat and
No.
stuff over here.
Blood.
God damn it, that's not what I wanted to do.
Brother.
It's not my fault. Fucking automatically sometimes put the boards up there.
If you have the planks there, it will automatically do it.
And we need to get outside here.
Okay, I'll go here, yeah.
Bathroom. Be on the safe side.
Bathroom is safe. Yeah, I say that everything.
I think we can go now.
Oh wait, you need to go back outside.
Okay.
There you go. Oh. That part over here.
Okay. Q, where is Q? Oh, there you go.
Why do I feel like this is the same fucking thing right now? I knew it! There it is.
I just love how it just was beating up you. It didn't
I was
care
like,
about
wait a
anyone
minute,
else.
why does this feel familiar? Sure enough, I was right.
I get a familiar sensation.
You see, no humans killed. Can we talk about that? No humans were killed. I killed the
Yeah,
one
I
person
know.
from the bathroom.
We know, it's Blood Moon, there's gonna be entity anyways.
Yeah.
See if I killed all the right people. Let's fucking go. Mateo was a doppelganger, the driver was a doppelganger, Beth was a doppelganger. Tell me what's a doppelganger. See, often
you know
wears the
what?
beanie, yet when questioned, he claims to not own a beanie. Thank
But you know
you,
what?
I was
Yep.
right. Sin's wrong. Woo, I win.
Diana wasn't the. Diana was human. Pure human.
I know. I got her number. Be going out later.
You're a rat still.
Yeah, you wish. Why do you
Bitch,
say that
you
about
wish you could get laid. Shut up. Fucking virgin.
Why can't
Talk all that shit when you're a virgin. Shut up.
Make my little
Slave
boo.
of,
you
Slayer
know
getting
I aim
molotov
for
by
the
me.
fucking throat. Don't test me.
It's not that deep.
Neighborhoods and darkness. Blackout.
You're right. She did say it wasn't that deep because it was a blow up doll.
Okay, so blackout hit east. So
East,
Yes.
east
Not good.
side, so
not
everything
good.
east side should be killed.
yeah.
It's not that
Just like your mama.
deep.
Okay, I put that thing away for a reason. Who brought it back out?
Your mom told me it was pretty deep.
Fucking find it and destroy it. Use it.
Bitch, if you shot at me, I swear on my life, I'll hit you.
Fuck is it? Fine. Where the fuck is it?
What? The email? On the computer?
No.
Cool.
No.
New
the
creature
fucking
spotted
book.
around the entity.
Oh yeah. Oh, there are the
Weeping
monsters that
Angel.
are like, the Weeping Angel. I'm surprised that actually you know about the Weeping Angel. It's been a while since people recognize Doctor Who stuff.
Bro, are you serious?
Where is
Yeah.
it?
Fucking Doctor
Where
Who
is
and literally every fucking character,
No.
every enemy from like a horror game lately has been a weeping angel.
Yeah. But it's funny because I'm telling you, I see people say they don't recognize when I tell them, oh, it's a Weeping Angel. They don't understand.
Well, you also live in a different country where.
Yeah, I know,
People
but
probably don't
the thing
play
is that
that
I met them since I was in
game
Costa Rica, and the thing is that I used to have all the CDs of every single season.
Believe it or not, Doctor Who's pretty common in the US. A lot of people around here watching.
Thank fucking God. So at least you have some cultural.
Probably got more culture than half of y'all. Shut up.
Hey, get out,
Bro,
stay.
you-
I'm holding it up there.
You don't have cultural?
US culture
First
is-
off, you can't even say cultural. Culture, right?
Culture.
So shut your
Culture.
ass up. What's
Yeah,
up?
but
Yeah,
at
I
least I
got
can speak more
culture.
than one language, bitch.
Look, I can goon better than you.
Wait,
Shut up.
Wait, he's not good. He's not good. He says always wear
Why?
shorts. He doesn't wear shorts. He says wear shorts.
Shorts for you. You got Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
He can speak.
Hey,
He
baby
can
girl.
speak Spanish,
How you
English,
doing?
and crap. Okay, fuck you. I know you're right next to me. Fuck you.
What'd you say?
Really, Chad.
Wow, what I guess that.
Second
He can speak Spanish, English, and crap. He a king. Yeah, he does speak a lot of crap, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Always talking shit. Oh, every time he opens his mouth, that's all I see is shit.
Natasha Lynn.
It's funny because she'll agree with me.
She will agree if it's funny.
No, she doesn't agree with me. She just sets you off in general. Who shot me, by the way? Zen, where the fuck are you little bitch?
I'm outside making the post. A new poster.
Wait, question.
Speaking English?
Yeah, I do. I told
What
you.
year is it right now? It's 1994.
93. 93.
Okay, so she would be old enough to be a night shift bartender. Okay, that's why I just want to make sure.
I mean, as long as she tells you the properly when you're usually good. Yeah, also make sure to check her body and shit. Make sure she's not like something weird going on with her.
Well, what did you do now?
You know what I meant. I'm fucking in a weird way.
She seems fine. I don't see anything wrong with her. Goodbye.
Oh well.
You trying to poop?
Get the fuck out. This is not a poop store.
I have no. There's no more gun. Why no gun?
I didn't kill him.
What you were trying to say?
She don't fucking know.
At a blow your chicken nuggets is a good deal.
Why the can? What do you mean with can and chicken nuggets?
Yeah,
what? Beef, blowjob, can, and chicken.
That they can't.
Oh my god! Give me the fucking sign. You can't trust the type shit.
I knew.
I noticed.
Okay, he does speak with a.
Yeah. It's a big
He does speak with a
everyone
lip.
fuck out.
He is good.
And we need more posters.
My brother-in-law with the database.
You good. You are good. You speak with lips. You are good.
There, now come read it.
I want gun. Can I get gun?
Why is there a cow? Look, it's the fucking cow. It's the, no one will ever believe you. Oh, you are me. You are me. You bastard.
There's a gnome.
You fucking cow. He betrayed me again. No. Why is this guy in the fucking door?
What do you mean about the cow?
You didn't see the fucking cow?
No.
I didn't see a cow.
Bro, how did nobody see the cow? He was right here next to the fucking thing. No,
I'm over here doing my
I'm
stuff.
far from it.
I'm over here making sure.
Is this guy yearns for the mines, bro? What the fuck?
This dude is steal a cigar or something.
Wait, what place is out
Oh,
of
this
power
guy
right
robbed somebody.
Yeah.
now? Wait, what place is out of power right now?
Huh?
Wait.
Let me tell you. Let me check.
Oh, go read the sign, by the way.
East. He's bad. He's bad.
Ow! Poor bitch! First off, everybody knows my job is important. I don't know what this license plate. He looked like he robbed the bank, bro.
FGHS.
1991 black police hammer and
Where you
expired.
They're not for anything. What's the problem with owning tools, you lying sack of shit? Hey, that's for my safety. If you want to get past it, then tough. They told me it was the highest grade strength padlock in the store. Hey, good luck trying to break it. You got past the padlock? That is completely reaching my privacy. It doesn't matter where the hell I got the cash, pump my gas already. I don't know, man. I feel
I have a feeling.
Should I just kill him on the premise that he robbed the bank?
No, he has to be a search criminal.
Yeah, I think
Can
he's
you kill him?
say search criminal.
You killed him.
No. Deal, we lose the 15 bucks, remember?
Please. If you won't do it, I know who
Oh, or my bathroom? Oh, hell nah.
will. You should have just fucking did it.
Fuck you. Should have never told her.
Let me check. No, everything's okay in here, okay?
Well, yeah, you never answered.
If he comes back, I'm blaming you guys.
Wow. Oh, hello, David.
Question,
Okay,
it
this
says
one
the
is
driver...
with the right eye.
It says the driver checks out as human. Let them check out. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, I already let him go, so we're good.
What do you mean?
Oh, go read the sign, damn it. I made a sign for you guys, you didn't even read it.
I'm trying to do a job.
There.
Someone else did my job.
That's way better, isn't it?
Yep.
$3.50 for a blowjob? That's a great deal.
Okay, let me check. Let me check. Let me
Yes,
check while you guys.
he has one eye. Yeah, the picture fits.
That was a rat. Kill it! Kill it!
Kill it!
Ah, it did. Well, then you better
Rat
pick it up
exploded.
before we fucking get to it. That's all I'm saying.
That's why I'm keeping the one in my pocket.
Yep, I get to
damn it.
pump kids up every day. I don't like
Nope.
that he said I want to kill him because
Nope.
of that.
Nope.
Life's too short for him to frown. Blind in left eye. Is his eye closed? Oh yeah, he does have. He
Yeah,
is
his
blind
eye's
in
closed.
left eye. Okay, this one's actually legit.
Is he always
March
smiling, though?
19th,
Is that a
1951.
smile?
Best birthday. Yes.
There's a guy trying to go in your bathroom.
Well, you better get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. I'll kill you. Get the fuck out. Don't come back. That's what I thought. He's the right one.
Cheeseburger.
Wait, what? Mike, what are you saying? Ooh, I want to look at the phone.
We give to his man above the god. Applause. I mean, oh god. Customers have been complaining about some stink coming from the woods behind the store. Oh, it's time. It's time to go behind the store.
How do you get behind the store?
Well, once you finish
You
with
get
the phone,
outside,
we'll
you get
unlock
behind.
it. He can speak. No, wait.
I got hiccups.
His cheeseburger time.
Cheeseburger.
Finish talking, man. Yeah. Oh, there he goes. Alright, now we gotta clean up the
Well, we
dead
need-
bodies. I got it. Got it back.
No, shit, I got hiccups.
Oh, that sucks for
Fucking
you.
worse. I'm eating your cheeseburgers for fast, bitch.
Yeah, I was choking on the cheeseburger for a second. Now she's choking.
Oh, something's coming. Sure, if that's what you want to call it. It looks like pee. It's fucking cute.
I don't know what it is.
You're such a brat. It's just moving.
What's that noise?
A creature that wants to kill us.
Nothing wants to kill us. My rat will protect me.
Big friendly creature, big deer.
Yeah, that's what you fucking thought,
Big deer, people are
bitch. Bitch, you
friendly.
thought. Bitch, you thought.
Biggie tall.
You know.
Oh, it's someone at this friendly store. They are.
Duck on
we have a
head.
robber.
Where?
What?
Kill him, confront him. The
Don't
fuck?
kill, don't kill. Just run away.
Well, too late now.
Anyway.
Oh, the broken guy is here again.
Why are you all just randomly shooting shit at this point?
Yeah.
Wait, I should have.
Another rat. Another rat.
Hello, sir. How may I help you?
You see my flashlight?
Look tired
Bitch,
on nights
that was my
and
job.
tired of breath. Oh, okay. Let me read about you. Isaac Warren. Huh. Youth pastor.
Oh, it is.
Try to keep the kids on a good path. Listen when no one else. Hey, so if he's a youth pastor, why is he wearing a cross upside down?
Oh.
Because he's a. And we got all of them again. Perfect.
Look at me. I actually did a good job.
Nice.
Of course, we needed a woman to be more observant than us. That sounds about right, actually. That's actually kind of pretty right. It's not wild if it's true.
I was like, hold on. That makes no sense if he's a youth pastor.
Yeah, you bastard. He's got a fucking Saint cross. There you are. Q, can read my sign.
I did.
Read it again. Read it out loud.
And okay, here you go. $3.99 for a blowjob? That's a good deal. Better now?
Yes, somebody clip that. I made my day, thank you.
Good.
Oh hell yeah, we made bad money. I'll have my total share of like $26. Like, bitch, fuck my money. Pay it.
Hey.
Potato.
Yay! They can go on our next shift. Let's go.
Wings.
My poopy.
Hey, man, a lot of
Real one
humans.
only wears shorts if someone denies that. Attached with a human.
Yeah.
Oh, Ethan, a
You know
doppelganger
what's
newspaper
awesome?
mentions the power outage in the east, halting business operations. Ethan claims to have been busy at his laundromat in the east today. Wearing an upside
And
down
then
cross
Isaac's-
necklace despite being a pastor.
Yeah.
Missing eyes. Oh,
I
you've
didn't
been
even
missing
know he
eyes
was
too.
missing eyes.
That's
Did not
crazy.
notice he was missing eyes. I noticed
That's
the
disturbing.
necklace.
That's a little disturbing. Yeah, poochies and ducks. Poochies and ducks. Poochies and ducks. I'm a
It's so
little
funny that there's
duck-a-love,
not a
poochies and
single
ducks.
cat in here.
Nope. Counter killer to strike
Cats are
tomorrow.
gay.
Residents urged to stay inside as the 8th approaches. The counter
Cats
killer
for gay
going to
people.
target 8 victims on the 8th of each month. Okay, so
Yeah, the serial killer is gonna come
Cheeseburger.
for us.
gotta be careful.
Yep.
Serial killer. We are the serial killers, I feel like.
I want a gun. I got guns, Jay.
The fuck is this directly?
Someone turn that fucking thing.
No, leave it. What is wrong with
I
the
got
music?
behind the scenes with this. I got behind the
Are you
scenes with
hating,
this now.
bruh?
Fucking sit.
Oh, hey, Q, come here.
Okay, where are you?
Come in the storage room. Come in the storage room.
Okay.
Oh, is it this guy?
Shh. Come in the storage room. Turn around.
Okay.
Say hello.
Do you not see her?
Oh,
Turn to your right.
oh, I see him now.
There you go. Let's see what happens when you hit him. Shoot him. What? Good for being you, bitch.
For everyone.
He came for me too.
Oh, okay. So this doesn't sound everybody. Okay.
I scream like Homer again.
I have a pretty note here.
This dog is stuck in the bathroom.
Again.
Probably fucking potato. Hey, back
Where's that?
Oh, Swamp in the
Read the
bathroom
fucking
too.
newspaper, bitches.
Come on, potato. Get out of the bathroom.
I already did.
There's one missing.
There we go.
Where the fuck is it? It's in the bathroom. Put in the fucking bathroom.
What?
Someone needs to read the note.
Silver Slayer.
I cannot
I
find
have
that
read
music.
I have read the note.
Yeah, I read it.
Did you put the music in the bathroom?
God, it's fucking blue.
Oh my god, that's a great idea.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
I don't know where it is. I'm trying to find it. It's not in the bathroom. Fuck. So we're going here. Excuse you.
Who didn't read the sign?
Slayer, Sin. Okay.
Oh, I know who didn't read the sign now.
Shut up.
Answer the phone, okay.
Traffic, not what that hat said.
Thieves. There's the rise of thieves.
Can't you get along now? Met with a friend of mine, Storm Luisa. She is like a lot longer than
Okay, let's not fuck it up this time, guys. Thief! Thief! Thief!
Oh,
more favorably at work. I'm not sure I follow. How does that help with information? Insert 69. Was he hurt yesterday?
Yes.
Yes, Natasha, yes.
Okay, I am asking as a fellow person. Every single person that comes. If you don't trust yourself, shoot every single person that comes to the thing.
Where is the music? I don't know.
I don't know, but
I mean, listen to someone who said about the bathroom.
I already looked in the bathroom. It's not in there.
He was there on the toilet. He moved
I'm not sure.
He was first on
Well,
the
then
top
he
of the
moved somewhere
of the
else.
court.
I think this person's fine. I don't have any bad vibes. I think they're fine.
After makeup, yeah.
Yeah, she always wears makeup. She's an overnight bartender. She is. Well, I don't remember how old she is, but she did say the right number when I asked.
Oh, I didn't buy those for you guys to use. Bought this for me. Another banner. Where's the other banner? I bought two of them. Where's the other one go?
Outside.
Well, just wait. What was this drop on the ground?
You're an idiot.
Wait, question.
Nah, you took
okay.
a wrong door, fool.
Why are you so short, my dude?
You go in the back room.
Hold on.
Go faster.
Go fast.
Gotta go fast.
I am trying to be a good customer service.
And
doing
how
it
is
very
that
well.
working out?
Is this guy meant to be short?
Yeah.
Yes.
Been working all day, going to get some snacks, ball and chill.
Check underneath his fingernails to see his dirt.
I see a lot of white.
Dirt. It says dirt, precisely.
He came in his fingernails.
Yeah. God dang, what I like.
I mean, he was painting a fence today.
I don't see dirt on his fingernails, and he's way shorter than the other guy that came in here yesterday. Like, the other guy was literally like twice his size. I don't think he's short. I think he's about here.
Is this
I'm betting. Also, his nails are
No, he's smaller. He's smaller.
Yeah, he's a lot
should be
smaller.
like short.
He says he's short on the.
Yeah, the description says he's short. He should be this short.
Okay, but we had the
But
same
does
guy
he have-
yesterday with the
Does he
same
have
fucking
wheels?
clothes,
Does he have
Yeah,
dirt on
He
his
was tall.
nails?
and he
He
was
was a
taller.
doppelganger.
Yeah,
This is
but
a doppelganger,
he's
yes.
Dirt.
He's short.
We
though.
killed his doppelganger. That's
we
what
killed
we're
his-
trying to say.
It actually says he's short,
You sure?
and he's short.
I don't think we killed
But-
the doppelganger.
Okay, but here's my question: is there dirt underneath his fingernails?
Yeah.
We
I mean,
can't
we
tell
can't
because it's
really
too fucking
see.
tall short.
I mean, all I see is a lot of freaking white, so I assume it's
That's what I'm
paint.
saying. If there's paint there,
Okay.
we don't see dirt. I don't think it's
I'm letting him go through then.
whatever. If I'm right, I'm right.
You're not right. You're wrong.
What?
Bitch, you don't know that.
Oh, hello there.
That's not the real one, but we'll let her.
I'm sorry. You.
Yo, there's someone drinking gasoline. What the fuck?
That's fine. I see
That's
nothing wrong
not
with
fine. That's
that. I don't
weird.
see anything wrong with that.
You better get out my bathroom. Get out my bathroom. Goodbye. Watch shit. Okay. I was trying to not kill her. But okay.
Alright, a little bit out of it. Got off
What
late
level of
shift
jump?
building.
Oh my God.
This guy.
He has a yeah. He has a lot of junk food and a dog.
Don't steal again. Oh, hold on.
294.
Don't, bitch! Don't steal again. There.
Wait, it says what does she have? Heavily face. Yeah.
Acne. She has pimples on her face.
Oh my god, she got her eyes are so fucking far apart.
August 17.
1992.
She got a bridge in between her eyes.
This is not dirty. This is not rusty neither, but the car is very rusty. Reddish.
Yeah, it's dirty. No, the car is red, but it's dirty.
Time up, little rough.
What the fuck are you riding over in that corner?
Don't worry about it.
Young food. Is it legal to have lite peckis now and then? I'm not sure. Wait, stop that. Has been a little rough. No patient coming, so I gotta sleep in the car. I think this guy is fake. He says he's sleeping in a dog bed.
It's okay. He'll sleep in the freaking car.
There you go.
He's using the dog bed for it.
The fuck did you write?
Stop being fucking classes, bitch.
If you enter my bono, you'll leave with no leg. You should say bitcho.
Bitcho.
Yeah, bitcho.
You the bitcho.
Have a beautiful day. You have a beautiful day.
Then it like works.
You let that finger out, I'm gonna fuck you up.
You want me to ride Banyo with the Enye?
Sure. I mean, I could.
And write
my keyboard
bitcho. Please and thank you.
Say it. Do it in Spanish. Fuck it. No. Put the fucking kiss me on my hot mouth to feel like romantic on it. Por favor.
Hey, did you see the one that says get gnomed in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you to go back there, and you were whining like a little bitch.
Okay, that's it. I'm killing the next person that walks in the door.
No, you cannot, because that's the boss's fucking friend, you dork.
There's two of them that just walked in. That person has no foot.
No, she has one leg that's shorter than the other. That's the boss literally just told us that over the phone.
There's two though.
Okay, well, she used our bathroom. Get the fuck out. He's got no clothes on. She's legit. That's the friend.
I'm still.
No,
friend, I'm telling you.
If you pay attention to the call of the boss.
Nope, I started not paying attention to the boss.
Oh, that's it. How did you shoplift? You got no clothes.
He put it on his wrist.
Get the fuck. Oh, I didn't think he was gonna blow up. I think he's gonna blow up in one hit.
Fine, I'll let this person
Luisa. Buenas noches, Luisa.
Get out of my face.
There you have the signal.
Yeah, another one.
The sign.
Bien, mi boca caliente, me siento romántico. That one's for you, Bob. I can't words. That one's for you, Volt. Is she walking weird or am I tripping?
Lisa Cannon.
Check the girl's name. Check Mia.
Her hair's different.
Yeah.
Wait,
she's not.
Why is her hair red?
I think one of her
orange,
legs
but it's
is
not.
different.
No.
Ask her about her hair.
I recently re-dyed my hair. It's like yellow.
Keep her head tied up.
Where you going?
Yep.
Yeah, it's tied up.
Oh, you
Yeah,
should.
tied up.
Well, you know, it's tied up. It always wears her blue necklace. Is she wearing a blue necklace?
Yes.
Yep, she is.
A necklace.
I don't know. The hair is what's stress me out.
And
I don't
she's
know what I trust.
unemployed.
Let me see the image.
Okay. I don't see any.
She kind of looks bald. I'm not gonna lie.
No. So in
His
here,
tie is correct, but the hair color does not match.
the hair color does not match. So that's what I'm asking. The hair color does not match.
Yeah. I'd say it's a
Wait. Did we look up the other person's name? Not Mia. It's Mia.
Her sister.
Mia Cannon, alive. What did she say about her sister?
Her name is Mia, and she
spent hundreds on that tattoo.
Tattoo. Wait, does she have a tattoo?
Her sister doesn't have a tattoo.
No.
She has
He's
a large
investigating about
tattoo.
his sister.
No, but does she have a tattoo? She's saying a tattoo.
She say her sister's alive, right? the fuck? Well, if you want to kill her, go for it. There you go.
I ran out of stuff.
Did you reload?
I forgot to reload.
Oh no!
Well, worst case scenario, we killed her sister.
It's the second bad guy.
If she comes in,
Waste man.
then we'll know.
What?
The what man?
The fucking pastor, I'm assuming?
Who?
Oh.
This guy.
Detective looking dude?
Oh, it's a private eye. It's a dick.
Victor Hall. He has no picture. Okay. What's behind
well, March 21st, 1966. Birthday. I'm pretty sure he's legit. Shit, Freddy, weird shit. Is his hand supposed to look like that?
Why is his hat so big? I asked that question.
That's a good question. I have no clue.
That was a big hat for such a tiny head.
Who
work for him?
Ouch.
Shoot him, gee. She got the gun right to his temple. Who do you work for?
Help me.
Who do you work for?
Well, do you think he's a person or not?
Pretty sure it's legit.
There's not enough info.
He's a private.
He's a dick. Let the dick
Investigator,
go.
Why are they don't go into the
Ride that dick. Crazy style. Cause I gotta poop. Why they wasn't allowed to poop in my bathroom or animals.
What the fuck is this behind me? When did you put that sign?
What? Wait, what?
What the fuck is these signs? What's happening?
Okay, wait.
You're welcome.
His name is Adnol? No, he's a doppelganger. His name tag's wrong.
Hold on.
Look at his name tag. What is his name? Andol? What does his name tag say? Adnol. There you go. Get him, ducks. Eat it. Eat it all.
Jason.
Let one get through.
Oh no.
Did you? I swear, if it's the detective, I'm gonna lose my mind.
That was. Start
I
preparing
just
for
thought I
the
was allowed to
incident.
shoot certain people.
That's not.
You weren't. I know they were legit. Some action
The fucking music.
I'm going to fucking.
God damn it! I just set the trap and you trigger it, fucker.
No, my fault. You're already bad at putting. Why are there 3 traps in a row? Put it in different spots.
Or get the fuck out of the way.
Get in here. Everyone who needs to get in the back, get in the back.
Oh, fuck. Who blocked the fucking...
Okay, there's
You
another
really-
back door. I haven't unlocked it.
No, not traps on it though.
You have like 5 traps on it.
You know what? I can't get into the trap. I guess I'm staying out here.
I'm here.
Hi. How you doing,
Oh. Don't mind me. She's getting attacked.
Laugh at your misery.
Bitches.
That wasn't me. I don't have a shotgun.
Fuck you up. Touch me again. You want to die, huh? Yeah. You got first, bitch. your goddamn
How the
shotgun.
fuck that shit has so much damage?
Yeah, keep fucking with me. See what happens.
I thought this shotgun will do damage. What the fuck?
Yeah. Fuck with the fucking mini weapon.
Get your ass back here, bitch. Get your ass over here. Yes, bitch. I'll fucking kill you.
That I just picked up.
You picked me up, damn it.
Hold on, I'm cleaning
We
up
don't have
these
yours.
Yeah, yeah, hold on.
I'm
Where is it? Fucking lose my mind. Where is it? Dude, I fucking hate it with the fucking passion, that music.
How much you want to bet instead of bet?
Fucking hate it. I'm gonna lose my ever fucking mind.
Sid, what are you doing? Where are you putting the music thing?
Outside.
Where? Show me. Show me where the fuck this music is.
It was over here. Hey, behind you was over here. It was right over here.
Here.
Show me.
You put it in there.
I hate passion. It's the most annoying thing in the world.
Well, you're the most annoying sound in the world.
Well, that's supposed to be me?
No, it's just making an annoying sound.
I'm curious who we let through.
I don't know, we're about to find
Who
out.
we?
Yeah, you guys told me I couldn't kill certain people.
So, $35. Jesus.
Oh,
and
You broke us place on the two. Oh, the Canada killer, yeah.
Yeah, no one cares. Who cares? He ain't killing people, blah, blah, blah. And then he does it tomorrow anyway.
Apparently we let two.
Yeah.
There it is.
Oh,
Natasha and
Oh,
Barry were doppelgangers. Louisa
Huh.
was a doppelganger, the first one, and the regular one was a human. Thank you. So, of course, it was y'all's
Elena.
fault. I told you that.
Says she had a ship working in car parts, but she's a computer engineer.
Did I not literally tell you both? I saw them yesterday. How the fuck are they here again?
No, Barry, you said was.
I said Barry was a doppelganger, and then said fucking Bosch said, no, he's not. No, he's not. And I was like, watch me be right. You like, no, you won't. And I was like,
well,
yeah,
he's human.
you tell
prove
he
me
was
right,
a doppelganger.
motherfucker.
He's a
Shut
human,
your
so he's
ass up.
No, we were right. He's not a doppelganger.
No,
the first
he's
Barry
human.
was a doppelganger.
Whatever. You know, Natasha was a doppelganger. She's still wrong.
What? I understood you saying you're a doppelganger.
You both said that, but she wasn't a doppelganger either.
Oh no, I was saying Barry. I don't care about Natasha.
No.
Natasha. I'm ready
Natasha.
to fuck up.
Oh, sorry. I thought I hit the button already.
Like, who the fuck just dropped a flashlight on the ground as they were running? What the fuck was that? It literally rolled too like it was a turd. That's fucking crazy.
Under which Middle County Fair was a success, drawing a strong turnout and okay, so if we see this dude, he is missing for 3 weeks. So if we see him,
Shoot him.
That's his wife is part of the family members that can show up too.
Okay.
roaches have been spotted crawling out of the vents around the store.
No,
Immediately affects-
we're not doing that.
Not to squash them when you see them. Okay, so if you see a roach, squash with a mop. That's what I'm being told.
Okay. You can use the hose too.
Go.
We know, Clyde. We trust you.
Oh, we got roaches now.
Down lower.
Hi.
Okay.
Need to restock on the shelves.
Yeah, I got more.
There's a naked dude coming in and a speedo.
Restock.
I'm sorry, I can't focus.
Wait, hold on. Did you let Clyde go?
Yes, you would see like.
Why did you let Clyde go? We all know on this day he's a doppelganger.
I don't know. It's my first time playing.
Well, you should ask.
No.
Yeah, you should ask and check stuff.
I did check stuff. Everything was fine.
Did he repeat the same thing he said in the tutorial?
Did he act weird?
No.
No. Did he repeat what he said in the tutorial? Is what I'm asking
No.
you.
Hey, Bob, I sure you heard about the calendar killer. He's no joke. Stays there tonight. Okay, no, he was just a regular talking. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking because there is a time where he will come and he will fucking repeat the exact same thing from the tutorial. We thought he was legit, and then we found out he was a
That's
doppelganger.
very difficult to actually.
I'm making sure that you didn't fucking let his doppelganger go because I don't want to fight this guy again tonight. All right.
Hey, it says he has an eye tap. He has lazy eye, but he doesn't have a lazy eye.
That's it.
Yeah,
I'm sold.
Well, I'm not killing one until I get to okay people now.
All you have to do is say he doesn't look legit. And if he doesn't look legit to me either, I bash his head. Get out. No bathroom for you. Do you not read this? Bésame en mi boca. Caliente mi siento romántico. Puta.
That means where's the bathroom?
Yeah, it means get the fuck out of my bathroom or whoop your ass. Don't get mad at me. I don't write the tax policies. I just enforce them. Why does he look like Christopher Walken, bro? What the fuck? This dude looks like Christopher Walken to me.
He does look like Christopher Walken.
He really does, dude. It's fucking weird.
Wait, damn it! I was trying to look up something. He's talking about his wife.
March
Hold on.
28th. Okay. What do you say about his wife?
I'm
You know where I
trying,
can
and
get
you guys
the
changed
leave-in
it.
conditioner for Bonnie? Her name's Bonnie.
Yeah. How you spell Bonnie? Is it B-O-N-N or B-O-N-I?
You spelled it right. She's alive. She is a nurse.
I say bold.
Oh, she the bald black girl, yeah.
Did I say leave-in conditioner? No, I meant chocolate. He's an doppelganger.
I want to see what she looks like.
Why would you need leave-in conditioner for a bald lady?
Oh.
I got it.
Yeah, someone do the car. I got the front. Don't trust me.
I'm helping us. I'll get the phone too.
RGB6.
Oh. Slayer.
What?
Come here.
Oh, there's no Indian.
Oh, well, that's crazy. Die.
Wait, who shot this man? Who shot this innocent man?
What innocent man?
Nobody's innocent.
Nobody's innocent. Fuck you. Don't rob me, bitch.
Hey, we're looking fine today.
Okay, I'm taking that customer so fucking Sin doesn't touch
He said she'd watch her creepy ass touching the customer's breathing. You know, I agree with you, Peter. Take care of the customer. Watch such creepy
Okay,
ass
so
touching.
she is married.
So,
I'm gonna check, see if he's alive.
right.
Is alive. That's my handsome puppy.
Can we just take this quick? I'm looking forward to going home looking just good at dark. Hold on.
Oh wait, check on her husband. Who's her husband?
I already did. He's
That's
alive.
more than right. Ball
Wait.
under left eye.
Give me a second. Davila.
That's her right eye. Right?
Q. Check who's the person missing.
Oh. Yeah, I even know
It's
to say
Walter
keep an eye out
Davila.
for it. How to be alive? Huh?
Yeah,
Huh?
that's the guy who's missing.
She got talked twice.
You gotta
Sometimes you gotta drop it like it's hot. You know what I mean? Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
I feel like if there's a missing person, they should have like something out here that shows it on like art.
That's the joke
Get
that
out.
you have to.
My bathroom.
Go back in and out.
My bathroom, bitch. Get the fuck out. Stop bleeding on your way out.
We know you didn't touch the woman, but you don't need to touch the guts on the bends.
Whatever I want.
Wait, do they have a fading heart tattoo on it?
Yes, on the right side.
Yes.
Don't take me.
Often repeats questions back when answering.
Okay, it doesn't. The guts don't do it.
Wait, hold on. I need to.
Yeah, she is. Fading heart tattoo. Yeah, it's here. She's doing that.
Yeah, she is doing it.
I got that written down for me. I didn't even realize I did that. Hold on. My date of birth, November 14th, 65. She's right.
The summer
I think
of
she's fine.
65.
I'm live, so. Alright. Check her out.
Hell yeah. Wait, that's how one use.
The summer of 6'7".
6'7". Yeah, I saw your cringe ass Twitter post.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, we got 6'7" together. Fucking stupid. Technically, I have an intern or something. This guy, we've seen this guy before.
He was a doppelganger that one who arrived the other time.
Okay, check his badge from the last time they got LPD or Radical badge. Yeah, he looks legit. Bring him up. I found a room.
What happened to you, Sin?
Oh. Nothing.
Where is he?
I was playing with the bear trap.
Yeah, he was down. All fours. Waiting for someone to get
What the
back.
fuck? This man does that long ass fucking neck. Wait. Oh. Okay, I guess he was a doppelganger.
I told you.
Sir, I didn't ask him a single question.
It's okay.
There
Yeah,
was
Who
no
shot him?
questions to need to
Who
be
shot him? Who shot him?
Vosh.
Where the fuck are you, Vosh?
You deal with that. I'm out.
Yeah, that person has a gun.
Come here.
Why? This town is very new for us too.
Give me up. I gave me up.
Shoot me for.
Sorry, you go over Colorado.
Fuck you.
Q,
Give me
you
up.
actually have to pull out a gun and shoot him, you know?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, to be fair, I can't even get up before he shoots me. See, I can't
Stop!
even get up.
Move then, fool!
It doesn't move a single second.
Oh my fucking god. You know what? I'm sick of this shit. Come here.
What am I mixing?
Yeah, that's right. You better fucking run.
I keep on getting shot.
Oh, hell
Fuck
no.
you.
I'll fucking kill you. Quick and Q, stop dying!
You fucking don't say you.
No, watch, dude.
I keep on
No,
getting
you
shot.
shoot you on
You shot me, you fucker! I'll kill you.
I need help more than you.
Well, now you don't. Now get the hell out of here. Let's go.
It's 21. My health's at.
So you walk right in the trap as I'm disarming it. Good fucking job, retard. Holy shit. Holy fuck! I was literally disarming and she walked right into it. I'm done. You fucking idiot. You deserve what you got there. Oh, fucking Christ. Hold on. Why are you keep trying to fucking have a gunfight with him when you clearly can't win? Jesus Christ. Let it go. Huevos.
Hey, we are huevos.
Right here.
Yeah, where are you? There we are.
At the damn, I was stocking the shells. I'm like, you lazy fucks, killing each other.
No, I didn't kill a single person. I got down a lot. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but you tried. That's what matters. These broadcast plays on TV. Despite matching up with the reoccurring killing patterns, season of the Calendar Killer did not strike for the first time in 6 months. Has the Calendar Killer lost her nerve? No. One day remains until Slayer's next medicine builds new.
Until potatoes next medicine.
So Hot Wings next medicine.
Yeah. Reiki Doppelganger.
Clyde was a human, sure. Raven the Doppelganger. His neck was normally long. He denies this. She came back from a date with her husband. The newspaper reveals that he is missing. Her car did not have an engine. Ask for hair products for his wife. Searching for her upper reveals she is bald. Database says he was has a lazy eye. When questioned about it, he doesn't know what you're talking about.
Seeing Clyde was human. I want to say Clyde.
Okay, yeah, but if he starts saying tutorial shit from the beginning again, he's not.
I've been making sure. I've been keeping track. I've been doing good. What's this paper right here?
You actually have been doing pretty good. This rent. The first time we played, we had fucking doppelganger like every other night.
The aura detector.
Where's the aura detector?
Is this
right
the
there.
machine in here?
Next to you.
Everyone needs to read it.
I just did.
I'm here checking up for token outside and the damn page reading the notes.
Ew.
$47, by the way.
Man, that's a face. Camera.
Huh? Oh, it's this thing. I love this thing.
Hey, burger on deck. Where is it?
What are you doing? Why?
Oh my gosh.
Why?
Guys, look.
No, I can't
I got a
talk.
little meat
what
on
the
my
fuck
head.
are you doing, Bosh?
Hey,
That person's flipping it. That person's double
Can we
gainer.
not?
Double gainer. Double
Can
gainer.
we not?
Double
Why?
gainer. Double gainer. Double gainer. Double gainer. Their head turns and looks at me regardless of where I'm looking at. Their head is staring straight at me.
Hang on, let me
Their
go
head is
get my mallet.
Straight at.
Oh, shit.
Straight at.
Okay.
Oh, he stole, by the way.
I got it.
Hey, it's Clyde again.
Or not.
I get to Clyde.
Careful.
What the fuck was the voice?
Beef?
Nice reach, but yup, it's the doppelganger. Oh my god. It's the gnome! It's the gnome! Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! Driving around the store. I can
Yo, he's making a noise and he's with a boar bike.
I'm chasing him down. Him, not you.
I may help you.
I think he's a doppelganger. So I can love you.
No, I Okay. So his name is Victor. He's a detective. I remember that. Let's see, it still says detective.
Use that shows.
He says, He's not saying what he said last time. He's just saying, Okay, what about your picture? Okay. What about your limbs? I would not answer that type of question when I ask about limbs. Why? Why you ask about that type of question? Why are you like wiggly?
I had never had that guy being a face.
He's wiggly?
He's very wiggly looking. Like, look how he stands.
Yeah,
that is a horrible posture. Like that's such. I don't know.
Scared doesn't say anything, so I think he's legit.
I don't know. I don't trust trust.
I think he's fake.
I don't
know
trust.
why. I have the feeling he's fake.
Well, that's all I need to hear.
Someone's in the back, by the way.
Phone. We need someone to know. Yeah.
Someone's in the back.
We're gonna answer the phone. Alright, then, go ahead, boss. Hope you're enjoying a peaceful, normal night. Because apparently, the store is now living peaceful, normal nights. I said in response to the swarms of roaches spilling out of the vents on the CCTV.
It's time to become a hoe.
You know the drill. Clear them out. You know, give me your damn bonus. What are you waiting for? Your hoses? Those makes everything easier.
You can take them on the phone.
I've been busy.
We have a lot of money there. Easy waste.
Shut up. Official warning from Net. A Jack in the Box music has a box has appeared recently appeared inside the entity. Yeah,
Oh, Jack's in the box. Oh no, not that thing.
What thing? Jack in the Box?
Yeah, Jack in the Box will fucking.
Hey yo,
The
Jackie!
entity now. Fucking you drinking propane again?
Yes, it is. He literally walked through the store with a propane thing in his hand. He's just spraying gas all over it.
Gassed up. Gassing you up, yo.
He's trying to burn the place down.
Oh.
You like this thing?
Back to work? What do you think of back to work about?
Dude's got a scooter in the back of his van. He's got toys in the back. This guy's a pedophile.
Leia, it's your turn.
Is it the pedophile? Is it the same pedophile? It's that it's the same pedophile. Yo, Epstein, the fuck out of here.
Man, where you?
I was waiting for Epstein to show up like a fuck down.
I think he's good.
Somebody called Donald Trump, tell me he got him. He's next.
McKeely's bestie.
Is he good?
I mean,
I don't know. Does he look good? Does he sound good?
I think he's good.
Speaking well? Is he retarded?
He's bald. He's speaking fine. He says he has to get back to his job. His job is night shift warehouse supervisor. He's on break right now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, seems pretty decent to me.
Yeah, well.
I
Ray
noticed.
Roland. Ray Roland.
Check birthday.
Checking with the lens.
Yes.
I checked.
You think I'm not checking me with the lens? I love this thing. That's all I've been doing.
She wants to see the bacon.
Wait. Do they have
Not
a
like a
boombox
no.
on sale?
Naked.
She's naked?
No.
Oh.
What?
No. Yes? I can't tell.
No, she's from Net.
She's a Net.
If she's from Net, oh, I know what's gonna happen now.
Okay, why do they all want to talk to me? Can you stop talking to me?
Vanessa McCree.
No, yeah, I know what's gonna happen now. You deal with her.
Oh.
Okay.
Birthday. Christmas coming
It checks
early.
out. Pretty sure she's in jail. No, really. We didn't know why. Fucking check it. That was Dennis, by the way. No, I thought it was the rapist. Like the fuck.
No, that's your dad.
Well, that's dead. He ain't never raped.
I don't know. He just came up to my head.
Look, my dad's not
tech
Tectones, alright? Got him! Did you really buy a bobblehead?
I need to get the sound effect, the applause sound effect on my soundboard.
Especially work demands this one. Oh, you're incredibly short in these days. He said it made a short joke. I love it. I speak properly because I was raised properly. It's not particularly complicated. It doesn't matter.
Honestly, I think he's fine. I don't see anything wrong with him.
Always purchases 3 bottles of water. What did he purchase? Yeah.
3 bottles of water, and he shows good on thing. He's a horse rider. That is what equestrian is. He rides horses.
Yeah, we're good. Shit's done. No doppelgangers.
No, we did. We had doppelgangers.
None that we let through.
Oh, shit.
Wait.
What? What's happening?
You missed it.
Yeah. That's why I say wait, stop, and then you decide to shot him with the hose.
Nah. You knocked that shit off, boy.
So my rats.
I gotta shoot the air so he knows that we need business, man.
Not my rat.
We really went overboard with the same pieces.
Yep.
Oh, we killed a human?
I did it.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about it.
Q did it. Check for 20 hours left in your front porch. Thanks for clearing out those roaches.
I'm about to have to do this. I just walked him and fed him.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Alright.
You might want to keep knowing what's going on.
Well, obviously. You lose 40 when you starts fishing for your slayers. Join you the next drift. Let's go. Other left in your mailbox. And me reads, come and see me tomorrow. Slayer won't get better unless it takes extreme measures to decide.
Oh, yeah, sir.
I have to go to the veterinarian. Sorry, I have to call out work tomorrow.
Nah, we gotta be your bitch. Oh, you
Oh,
can't
Victor
be
Hill was okay. That was me. Okay,
And Vanessa.
I was wrong.
Died anyway.
Yeah, but that's a
was
died
died
because
just
of
naturally.
the fucking...
Yeah,
Victor Hale
the real
was...
ones.
Victor was responsible.
Yeah, Victor was me.
Oh, wow. His no.
Honestly, I didn't have a gun last time.
Probably finished before they beat
What?
I said we'll probably finish the story mode by 8:30, and if we do, I'll grab some food after this.
Me hungry.
Or I could just go with
Oh, I have to read the little dumb thing in the back. No, you.
Oh, you.
Robot delay is expected.
Stacey Kennedy, 24, passed away unexpectedly this week. Remembered for her kindness and brave spirit, she will deeply miss. So Stacey Kennedy, 24, comes in. She's dead. She shouldn't be here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Big
fungus.
The place to beat up outside.
Oh my god, my unicorn hat. Let's go. Can't run the store without a unicorn hat. Damn it, you beat me to it. Fucker. Well, we both can't wear it. Damn. Basically because it just looks stupid. That's fine. I got big tough now, baby.
Nah, you can't walk away from me.
He's gonna die again. I'm gonna laugh. Oh, big hair. Oh, last chat. Hey, killing each other. Holy fuck.
No. I have fucking vendetta with someone right now.
Yeah, I see it soon.
Oh wait. Skinny thingy.
The Blake sucked. Who bought the Blake?
Anyway, back to my talking.
Anyway, I was gonna
right
here. I wanna leave.
He seems fine. Thank you.
You're gonna get killed or something.
Red SUV, rear window cracked, detailed updated.
Can't that one.
An SUV. Yeah, that actually suits you. You do look like a big head.
Finally noted that Why do I keep getting so many?
Yep, been doing the rest for years. Keep doing it. Oh, I got it. Oh, shit. Fuck you. Guys.
Well,
Yeah, you're legit.
Guys, look. I feel bonita.
Do you feel bonita?
I do feel bonita. Muy very bonita. You trying to kill him?
we have almost every single head.
No, I was shooting the person at the
Uh-oh.
about. I've been keeping up with your job that you have implied.
You never told me everything was in there. How am I supposed to fucking do it?
What?
I'm busy. Yeah, well, I have other jobs. It's just beating people up and going in the bathroom.
The bathroom is even.
The
See
bathroom
my
beating.
intelligent sister.
What the fucking name?
What the fuck is on my screen? What the fuck is on my screen right now? What the fuck is that? I don't like that. I don't know what it is, but it's weird.
What?
Holy
I
shit!
don't know. I'm trying to figure the fuck out. It's a weird spider or something, but it's not actually in the game.
Wait, what was his date of birth?
In the game, you say?
Yes.
I don't see it.
You are.
His twin sister's dead.
He said she's alive.
He said he's looking for a job for his twin sister.
No, he's not. Oh, sorry, got beat up. Got my bathroom, bitch. What shall I let them run? Way out. Woo, killed her.
I didn't.
I don't buy that doppelganger crap because they have to fear each other. I don't trust you.
You. I have a family outside that you need to meet.
College student, bright ginger hair, often wears a beanie.
Is it front door or back door?
Oh, back door. Q, come back.
I'm coming.
Yeah, that's another institution I think from us. Scoff another way to profile us.
They're not showing up on my thing.
That's me unless they started swapping photos with the surprise
I mean, they don't look human anyway.
Hold on.
Yeah, you
I shoot.
Can't touch them.
Let's see what happens.
Oh, guys, look at this fucking thing.
I want to see.
Where are you?
Look.
Oh. Oh yeah, you see.
That's. You really think
Is that fucking
person?
normal?
He's a gymnastic.
Really think
Can you
that's a
walk like that,
person?
bitch?
You like a gymnastic?
Call me 555662782.
I
What
mean-
the fuck?
Hey.
I don't think this is a real man.
His name is Rudnick.
Rudnick?
What's looking good looking? Yep.
How the fuck do you spell Rudnick?
I'm not listening to
Rudnick
anything
Wex
you're
is
saying.
deceased. He's deceased.
Just admiring the way your lips move.
I'm trying to learn. You're not having that. You don't love me. None of you are. The boss, I can't stop it.
What?
Nothing. Don't worry about it. If we're paying attention, I'm not gonna repeat myself.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going outside. Who ordered something?
Your mom. I didn't order shit. Blaming me, bitch. Ordered these
Let's
nuts
see
in your mouth.
what the people have opened ordered.
Oh, a lot of grenades.
I take the Molotovs.
You cannot be trusted with the Molotov, sir.
I can't be trusted.
You can trust with anything, honestly.
I just gotta kill myself with them.
Yeah, no, you're gonna kill me with them like you did the last 3 times.
Hey, so the last
Fucker.
lady we had, who was hurt, so is she good now? Talk about
She can be a doppelganger still.
She's talking about computers.
She's a computer engineer, yeah.
Yeah.
He's jumping on the left, so...
Ask her questions.
I did. She answered them all correctly.
Okay. Check the thingy.
Who's that speaking on the phone?
Oh, fucking hell. We know you are kind.
Eh.
Thank you.
Oh,
it's the fucking Skinwalker people. They want us to go fucking vanish or heal them.
Yeah.
Where's the bucket?
I know you kind to love us.
What do you want us to do? Hello?
They want us to take the bucket and fill up the
I'm taking a picture of you.
Okay,
That's my rat.
All your feet is like... Why do you have a rat?
Why doesn't she have a rat? She always has a rat.
The whole time game.
She had the rat fucking the whole time.
Oh, it tells you where. Oh, I don't have a flashlight. I kind of like through that.
No worries. Happy to help.
Anyway, back to my normal daily duties.
Yeah, it's
I don't get paid for this shit.
I am gonna take a
I'm
nap.
lost. Guys, I'm lost. I need help finding my way back.
Walk straight.
Me.
Oh, someone left money.
I went
Goth
the wrong
chick.
way. You're like,
Is your girl? Scan her.
I mean, I want to see. Ow!
Nope. Scanner, scanner's Q. Come here and scanner. Scanner?
You?
Q?
Q? I think she had a heart attack.
Did you die? But did you die though? So why were you so quiet?
No, sometimes you gotta who is the one who cleared the flippin' thing in the back.
Scared the fucking shit out of me, bro.
Yeah, I told you, that's why I shot her the other day. I got fucking scared the fuck out of it.
No offense, when you guys tell me, hey, come look at this person, I believe it. Well,
I mean, but it's funner when you actually come and see it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, no, I totally agree. Do not step right there.
Do not go for the back like 3 traps there.
I'm too late, I'm already.
Come here, Q.
How about this one? I'll put this right here. You put yours down. Close the door. Hot Wings, come over here. Don't stand near the explosive thing, you dum-dum.
Hell yeah.
Diablo. Wicked dogs are opening everything.
Clear door.
Let it go through the face. We're gonna take it with traps on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's so many fucking traps.
God damn it. I do.
Oh, who the fuck is using the freaking flamethrower?
Me, bitch.
I don't know.
It's me and Slake. And we beat the shit.
I'm gonna refill stuff while you guys clean up.
Oh shit. Yep.
Checking everywhere. I think everything's good.
Roach. Good.
I think everything's good. So now that fire is introduced to the night, everything's game burnt. Gotcha. Oh, stretch.
No humans killed Sebastopol. Let's
nice.
$38, hell yeah.
Man, we're doing a really good job.
Oh yeah. I greet you with a somber look on his face. Unfortunately, the state of disease adapts to the medicine. At this point, medication won't be enough.
No.
Next option is surgery. Surgery will cost $250. He pauses and adds, and to be blunt, it needs to happen within 3 days. 3 days remains will save $250 surgery bill.
3 days. Time.
We got this. We've been doing pretty good, honestly.
Derek was a doppelganger.
Oh well, how the fuck? Oh, I guess one got through.
James told one jacket yet it's different on Soul's ID.
See, that's why we gotta be more vigilant. That's all.
Vigilante.
I wonder what would happen if I put customers on fire.
If Hot Wings dies, I will cry.
Oh, hey! Oh, you missed it. It was the guy on the roof.
Oh yeah, I saw him the other day.
Criminal on the run. The sheriff's office is offering $20 for retrieval of the repeat offending pervert, dead or alive.
Pervert? Today, QQ.
Excuse you?
Yeah, he's a pervert.
You, bitch.
Is it?
I'm not a pervert. I'm a degenerate. There's a difference.
Wait a sec. We're looking so hard for this thing.
Not hard enough, it's
You don't look hard. You look hard to me.
We've unlocked all the hats.
You sure?
Yeah, I was one thing. We already got all hats.
We just got the last one, which was a clown nose. They were over ducky. I want the ducky on my head. What the fuck is that?
Bro, I know you did not go behind the damn fucking thing and touch the goddamn music box.
Hell yeah.
I hit it there for a reason, you bitch.
Fucker staying in my fucking pocket the rest of the night. Give me it fucking back.
I have it. It's not going anywhere.
I fucking hate that thing so much.
I need to buy a new one.
Why do you think I fucking hit it? Sydney, you're not buying shit. Get away from the computer.
Who took the gun here?
Someone needs to look at the thing.
We need someone in. Oh, mail. Troublemaker. Oh no. Ouch!
Stop touching the music box. Bitch. Go ahead. Go ahead. Give me a reason. Hey, mate. What up, mate? Oh, yeah, the troublemakers are here now. Been a best girl 15 years. You'd be amazed what tries to live inside people's walls. You've been living in my walls for years. What are you talking about? Keep the books up. Deeply trimmed beard. Gotta look professional. Nobody's just a man with dirt on his face. His job is knee deep filled. Did you say they took that this morning? I don't know about that, buddy. March 15th, 1954, spring baby. You
buy everything on the
I didn't buy everything. Someone else did. I only bought one thing.
From the chemicals, but nothing south.
If I cannot save flipping my child, I will get mad.
What?
I'm mad if I can't save hot wings.
Bitch ass fly.
Are you confused about what he's asking?
Steady hands, good grab, head learn to move. I don't know what kind of answer you like from me. Oh, yeah. Get the rat. Ooh, we got glasses now. Ooh, we got a fucking basket thingy now. Ooh, we got Wavos. Hello, boss. I'd buy this one, please. Wait, who did you kill the other day? Who did you kill? And you.
Troublemaker outside the store.
Alive, yes. Okay. Dishwasher, yes, boss. Dishwasher is my job.
He wants a little bit
English. English grammar is small problem. I like the big problem. Hands like this for dishwashing. Wait, does he have callous hands this time too? Yep, he does. Start. I tried to learn riding bike. I fall many times. The computer says I-26, but I actually 27. The government. Oh, yes, boss, that me photo. Catch me on bad day. I don't have many good day.
Hold on, I have to hit this thing so it stops ringing. Oh, I have to restart stuff.
I'm gonna go with
why are the lights?
Oh, there's a creature crawling on the ceiling. Oh, he's gone.
Well, I'm restocking stuff. I couldn't see it.
Well, I saw it. It was disturbing. We need to fix our stock. Hello, my friend. You look tired. I hope your night is gentle.
It's the IT
Dimitri Volkov.
Grace Wong.
Cobra. When I work with flowers, head becomes quiet.
How do you get rid of bad guys? How do you get rid of
smack them with toilet paper. You can get toilet paper out of the bathroom. Or shoot them. That works too.
You can do that.
Large birthmark on right side of the face. Even if flower grow with strange colors. My mother used to tell me this many times. Wait, did you say right side of face? Left, right. That's the left side of your face there. Am I right? Is that the left side of his face?
Where is it?
It's supposed to be on the right side of his face.
Right side.
Okay, from my point of view, that's left, not right.
That's right. Just it's on your left, on his right.
alive, so I'm
She's alive, yeah.
1996. 1996, yep, that's correct. 1996, Wong
You
alive.
interrupted my goddamn for some fucking outside bullshit.
Yes. You can scan it.
Right, insurance commercials is pretty. Oh my god.
I am camera.
What?
I am camera.
1962.
Oh, no, yeah.
I am camera.
So, can I put this cam on fire?
No.
Yeah, so
Shit.
What were we? No, he was good. He was good. Slayer, he's good. I've been keeping
he's
it.
alive and everything. Database.
Yeah, I've been
It's
keeping
okay,
an eye
yeah.
on the scanner thing. Guy's trying to go to the bathroom.
I know what you were trying. Back the fuck up.
Can you shoot this
Let's
dude,
skip
please? Or slap him?
Ooh.
This dude at the bathroom.
Fuck out, bitch.
So, radical outside, yes or no? Which seems your
Yes, the
opinion
car
is-
seems to be okay actually.
Oh, nice. Good 1990 dark gray Subaru. Yeah,
Wait, what's
dark
up with that dude's shirt?
La 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 la.
What kind of shirt is that? That's
Oh. Wait.
oh god, that scared me.
What?
Nothing, just shooting.
You hear something on the right?
No.
What is that?
That sounds like a creature.
Oh, we have a corpse.
Why is his head so big?
Guys,
why don't you...
wait, you need to come to the bathroom, by the way.
Oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, why
Yeah,
is
we
your
can't
name
play that.
yeah, but you name tag says yeah. How are they doing that?
Yeah.
I think this is a his name says Howard, but he's
Wait, how do we get rid of the corpse in the
outfit
bathroom?
says Yak.
Well, not anymore. He's dead.
What?
He just said he doesn't think he's Jack. He said it was the wrong name, so I shot him. Don't question me.
Okay.
Shut your
Wait,
ass
how
up.
do we get rid of the bathroom?
I'll brick you.
Yeah, it's mainly because there is an event here, so you haven't come here to steal the queue.
I did.
Oh, you see the corpse?
Yes.
Okay.
Why are you not looking at
Stop
the
talking
first
to Charlie.
person?
I don't think Slayer has though.
What?
Corpse.
I looked at the corpse already. Nope. Wrong birthday. He's fake. 11th of August.
Shame on you for lying about
Birthday
your
says the 17th. Fucking December. Or 18th of December. That's not August.
Husband Harold. What is your last name? Judith Calhoun. Check who of Harold.
I'm looking.
Wait, where's my rat? Oh.
Harold Calhoun is deceased. She's a doppelganger.
I killed my rat. It's fucking sad now. Can you kill the thing right here, please?
One? Which one?
Can you?
Bye. Beat him with a brick.
I don't have one.
Let's go.
sunglasses. I'm putting something near the sunglasses. Let you know in advance.
I'm just staying in bed.
I'm the same way. I see you trying to hide the boombox for me.
I will fucking kill you if you touch it. Keep trying to be bitch.
Oh, I know.
You better fucking know.
Oh, I know.
Get in here. Well, that sucks to suck.
I was playing with him outside, yeah.
Outside like an idiot.
I mean, I had fun.
Alright, clean up.
Yeah.
Fuck! That's all.
I hear that.
Bitch.
Can you open up the... Keeps on opening and closing the door.
I didn't open or close anything. I opened it. You keep closing it. Because you keep pressing the button to close it, you dork.
No, I'm leaving.
Yes, you are. I'm not closing the door as you're opening it, bro. I'm literally closing it. Wait, you fucking bro. Ghastly. I have a shot. Do you want to touch me? Also, click this damn button. Since bitch ass getting killed.
The only thing that's killed me is my own teammates.
Where are you, dumbass?
Outside.
Where outside? He said outside and help me figure it out. You walked on a landmine, I heard that.
What the fucking landmine?
It was still there. Bro. I know how to get up when I'm on fire. You dick.
Yep.
15 reasons why I chose the genocide. True!
Yeah, you're my 13 reasons why.
You're my 15th reason why.
Who's the one you let through? What is the double gamer you let through?
We'll find out when we find out. We literally need one more day and we'll have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have enough. Smart, you'll be better. Okay, human.
And you. His forehead scar is different to the one in the ID photo. That was on me. Yeah, I couldn't tell the difference. I knew he fucking doppelganger. I don't know why I let him through.
I know that one you were questioning about because you're like,
yeah, because I'd already fucking searched him 2 days before. So usually people don't come back after they become the person. Yeah, that was my bad, bro.
My bad, bro.
this is the motion scope. It reads customers allowed.
And a piece of body in here.
Okay. I'll get
And
it.
two
Motion scope.
pieces.
I'll get it.
Oh, it's my motion reader. Yeah.
Close it.
Doesn't allow me to jump. Oh, it doesn't allow you to jump when you have the motion thing in your hand.
No, you have to wait for them to a client. You have to scan their emotions. Emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
Oh, we have a car.
What's it made? Do you want Swan to live? I want Swan to live, yeah. Oh, it's a car. What's up? How many have 7 of the gas? You have good calls, and you have some here. You have anything. Oh, you have midnight news, 8 victims of the calendar killer found dead. Okay, we found phone calls and bikes.
Did you guys see the
1994 registration expiration. 1993 black modified police number.
Call the sheriff.
Link decals on both sides. Details updated. Don't do that.
Don't go. We are gonna have the money anyways.
Yeah, we're gonna have the money anyways. And if you want the true ending, you can call.
So this person's already sus looking because they have flippin' different. They have a stain on their clothes.
I don't know if I should be concerned about the truck, the van outside being a 1993 fucking modified.
But it's not saying it's a picture. That's why.
That's the part that's throwing me off. This is 1993.
Lane C.
Wait, no, this has got to be a doppelganger because there's no way it used to be a police car, but it's 1993. It's a brand new car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's got to be a doppelganger. Hold on, let me go get a mallet. Get me mallet. Oh, I got a bigger mallet. I'm Eustace. Muriel. Dog, you make me mad.
We need more.
You know what? If that was a human, I don't care. I don't care.
Question.
Yeah.
It has a shirt and it's very big.
Is she bleeding on the floor?
I see.
Ask her about the shirt.
I asked her and she says.
Lynn, how are you asking me? Are you asking me to say is nothing? I just spilled some coffee. It's a lie. It's a lie. She said coffee on her.
This morning.
Coffee to me.
Yeah, she spilled some coffee her in the morning. That's
yeah,
not
in
coffee.
this morning. Are you sure? Because she's not bleeding this time.
Well,
no.
coffee isn't.
I mean, it can be just, remember, it's just a fucking indie game. They probably just chose the wrong color. That's it. They also want to confuse you too.
You should say that. That should be a doppelganger.
May 9th, 1990.
I'm not checking her out. I don't want to take blame for her.
I mean, Bash will give this to you. Yes or no?
It says bags off under her eyes in this picture. She doesn't have bags under her eyes.
Wait, that's too late. No. No.
She has bright red hair.
Yeah, I
so
see
that's
that.
right.
Yeah, she has massive bags under her eyes.
See, it's this picture. It's the picture that's throwing me off.
That's what I'm saying. The picture doesn't look the same as her.
Well, ask about the picture. When was the picture taken? I guess I was tired that day.
She was less tired.
There is no bag on the picture. She's lying.
You said I was less tired that day.
Okay, less tired.
I don't know. Do you guys want to just go for it? I mean, we're not gonna lose anyway. We still got 2 days.
I mean,
yeah.
Up to
Fuck
you.
it. Die.
I don't trust. I don't.
Ow! What the fuck?
Holy!
What explosive? Get the fuck out of here.
Oh, hey, there's a bat. That's a.
That's.
Right
That was boss. Oh, another boss.
That was a long one.
Why would you tell us to come attack us?
Sorry. They were eager to visit me.
What the fuck is that?
Oh, yeah, the body truck.
But you look different in your picture, Bart.
If that's the case, he's a dead man.
We'll mine
because sometimes he's shaved, sometimes he's a doppelganger.
He says his wife, though. Let's go check see his wife.
What's his wife's name?
I don't know, he just says his wife.
Well, there's a few people here.
Oh yeah, his wife asked her for
I don't know what kind of answer you're looking for there, mate. I feel like I saw him yesterday.
Yeah, they can be here multiple times.
Yeah, but 9 times out of 10.
Why there is constant blood on the bathroom? I don't want to look, but let's try.
You see, but his description is neat. So here's the thing. It says neatly trimmed beard. Wait,
Get out.
Again, I told you, sometimes he actually shaves, sometimes he's a doppelganger. You have to be careful.
That's why. Why?
Wait.
Why?
No. Yeah, they only updated the description last week. I shaved this morning, though. Wife's been wishing it gone for a while. That decision ain't gonna make me get me killed, is it? If they did it last week, and he was just here yesterday with a neatly trimmed beard, that's a doppelganger.
Okay, you do whatever you think is best, then.
I don't know. You want to let him go? Let him go. But if he's a doppelganger,
I'll make the decision.
Can't be late for it. Never see what the fuck? Where are you going, lady? You're definitely a doppelganger.
No, but that was a troublemaker. That was money.
Whatever.
What do you want to speak to me?
Like our description, just in case.
It's clobbering time, damn right.
His large tattoo on neck to left arm.
I'm pretty sure
Check if the design is the correct one.
The other one. I'm
So
pretty
I
sure
think
she's
someone
the
else
real one
double
because I
checked
got the doppelganger the other day.
Is at the left.
18th of December. What's her birthday? Yep, that's her.
Check the design of the tattoo just in case, remember, the design can change.
Oh, I don't know what the emotion thing is, so.
It's right here. Irritated. Why? Yeah, I'm irritated because you're shoving that shit in my face when I'm just trying to buy these. It's fair. I see no problem with that being the answer.
Yeah, I think so.
We don't need to fight. Oh shit. Oh, hello, this doctor.
Oops. Bro. Whatever, get over it.
The dentist is in
I mean, one
back.
bitch.
Dentist
who?
is in back.
Hey, Q, come here, come with. Q, go with Sin.
Back door?
He's gone. He was we get the thing.
There's the garage open.
Yeah, when he just looked at us when hey, I'm on it. This guy's back there.
Fucking roaches. Okay. Dana, cut it out!
Wasn't there a Delgado earlier?
Probably.
Wasn't someone deceased though? No, it's Catherine Delgado. Catherine Delgado was the one that was deceased.
I think I want to leave it on this night.
Craving human
Craving human flesh.
It's an ugly way to put it. I'd say appreciating the texture. Yeah, that's not.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Vosh?
I think I'm gonna leave it after this night because I am shooting there right now.
Yeah, I gotta go to. It's like 2 in the morning.
Yeah, my eyes hurt at this point. Oh yeah, he's an actual doppelganger, but he will not do anything if you let him go. Yeah.
He's high out of mine.
He is high as fuck.
Yeah. Often has red eyes. And if you get it, you get it. Oh my fucking god. Okay. Stoned. Yeah, you're fine.
Hey, this is not.
It's toilet paper. He ain't gonna die from toilet paper. Shut up.
If he does, he's weak.
If he does, he's a
If he does, he deserves to die because of toilet paper.
Exactly. I need the less lethal method. I don't want to hear it. Yeah, shit, spaghetti.
Yusuf. That name again.
Yusuf Murad.
Good.
Tired. Often clean your throat before speaking. Yeah, okay, so they do. I do like your hair. Amused.
Oh, I didn't mean to hit him with the favorite toilet.
Yeah, I guess I am. But why? What?
Get out! Go!
You really need to go slay.
He's not leaving. He's
Hey,
broke.
if he was born in 1952, I mean 1928, how old would he be?
Okay, there you go.
Why are you letting him in my bed? Get out! There we go. Get out.
Hold on, doing some math.
Why don't you have pants on?
He needs some milk. Yeah, he does. Da. Oh fuck.
1928. He's 65 years old. Does he look like a 65-year-old?
Wait, what?
I mean,
I think you're overthinking at this point.
Yeah, if you look close,
He looks like an old guy. Yes, he does. He looks old.
Okay.
yeah.
Not like super
He's
old.
good to go then. That's the only thing I was questioning about.
Oh, it's you again. What's up?
She's not as tall as last time.
Just leaving. Good. Hey, what's up, man? How's Gertrude are making moves here while you're stuck into rat place? Sure. His picture already doesn't fit. He had 2 functional arms.
He has a lazy eye.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
What side? What side?
Yeah, it doesn't fit side.
Oh
so
shit, my bad, bro.
Jesus, man.
That's toilet paper, relax. Switching it up so
Ask
I
him
gotta
about his
keep like
motions. Ow.
Hey, stop fucking.
Smug egotistical. Shit, you can read that.
Shit,
I
you
guess
can
when
read
you're
that?
at a point in time in life, you can't help but look down on people like you. Okay.
I want to kill him just for the comments, bro.
I'm sorry.
Lazy guy, motherfucker ain't telling me what the fuck I can kill. Fucking.
I don't appreciate being called being looked down on.
See, I'm seeing you. You're just like me. You don't play that bullshit.
You let one day. Yep, I kind of figured.
One ganger of the doppel. Gotta leave.
You can double my ganger.
Danger. I'm in danger, ganger.
Do not go in the back. I'm
throw out my back? Alright, bud.
There's some mine here, so I don't walk on it. Yeah, I think it'll be a trap here.
Right, get in there.
You know when you want me to close it up? Pour it up.
Pour it up.
I'm boarding this shit up over here. We have a couple of traps behind here.
Okay, I'm ready.
Shotgun.
Alright, stay away from that door because I got a fucking bomb on it. You can get away from the door. No, I meant that door.
Yeah. It looks adorable.
Snippy piece.
How many grenades did you throw? What the fuck is this?
Music box, music box.
Got a music box.
Baby. Oh, bitch.
Probably the fastest we ever done that.
Yeah, better find grenades, I guess.
We got so much traps and shit. Grenade C4.
Oh, a lot of dead bodies outside.
A what?
Oh shit, what the fuck why are there outside?
Babies.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah, we heard you. You gotta go.
Yo.
And we were away. We killed 3 people.
Yep.
We don't need to. We have enough.
One day remaining.
Yeah.
Where's Barrel Lincoln Wine?
What the?
Oh, we need a
Doppelganger was Harold.
Harold. I told you.
He's 39. Oh, Harold 39. Okay. And Ricky was a person.
I said. He was the doppelganger.
He's the one that we were arguing about for a bit, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
And I said if I was right, I was right. And I was right. I should like just do whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let somebody else decide. And if I'm right, I'm right.
Yeah, well, I'll see you guys on later.
Later.
You guys have a good day.
Well, it's nighttime. Later.
Later, alligator.
$3.99 for a blowjob. That's a good deal.
That's a good deal.
That's a good deal.
I think I did a good, fantastic job at advertising it.
You sure did.
Yeah, you did.
Alright, one more night and we're done.
45 years since the beloved Mayor Dawson's death. Okay, so if we see Mayor Dawson's, he's dead.
Got it.
Check the thing in the back, and then we're good to go.
Diggy, old Dawson dead. Oh god, this is where we're gonna fucking run out from the goddamn dude. I'm not mistaken, the other night. It's gonna be fun. You wanna know where I hit the music boombox?
Where?
In the bathroom.
Kind of figured because that's where your
Right there.
stuff usually is.
Yep, I hit it right there in the bathroom, in the fucking vents. No one would find it.
Oh, right, this is where
Stay safe.
you have to be fast.
About it. Fucking goddamn it. Customers have begun to leave without paying if they wait too long for service. Customers have more patience and storage rating is high. If the doppelganger patience runs empty, it will alert the entity. Get paid both mean and sober. It's Big Anchor, pretty hard to miss. Is it a Big
I
Anchor?
think he's pretty good.
Yeah, it's Big Anchor. Wait, this is right arm, right? Yeah, it's his right
Yeah.
arm. Okay. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, same picture.
Check out the skinny. Nope, he's a doppelganger.
Wow.
Check his face. Told
You know, I looked at him from this side, and so I didn't see it.
That's fine. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh no, that's not right. Good thing we checked before we get him signed. We got a fucking troublemaker in the back. Hang on, I don't think we're this troublemaker. Get out, bitch.
Okay. Well, there's,
Rat's dead. Someone else I don't know. I'm coming, bitch. Let me get $1 any burp gas you got. I'm feeling lucky. This guy's drunk. That's great. Drunk driver, man. You love it. Love to see it. God, flashlight.
inventory out.
Bro, you fucking drinking? Are you cereal? Speed. License plate. Heck, you open, I need some gas. Burp, good thing you're not a cop. Hit. You're a fucking asshole. I hate you. We don't appreciate you. 1992 black station wagon, clean exterior, messy interior, details on it weekly. Oh, shit. That block looks good. Yeah. Bitch, fucking. Oh, you really have a choice.
Two people are coming in at the same time. Oh my god.
Saw that, right? He was lifting up the fucking Slurpee machine. The fuck?
There was a dude in here.
There's a Q, come in the back. There's a guy vomiting on the floor.
God.
I shit you not. Somebody clip this shit. Well, it gets worse every time, I swear. Stop cooking in my bathroom, asshole. Get out.
God, everything's just going to shit.
Yeah, that's the last night for you. Alright, get out, you fucking pukey bitch. Detective at the gas station. Okay.
Talk to her for a split second, and because I don't really can't figure out.
Dumpster. Fuck it. It's last night. We have enough money, so we're just kind of waiting out this night. We're good. It's not gonna lose money anyway. Here, you take care of her. I'm gonna get the garbage.
Okay. He seems good.
No. Damn it, I just cleaned all this shit. Jones.
Two little ones. Okay. Lee and Ken. Okay, let's check that out. Wait, what?
What? Shit in my bathroom.
She's a doppelganger. She doesn't have kids called Lee and Ken. There's Lee and Ben.
So we don't own them kids. Lol. That's definitely not good. I think it's the end of the night.
He's Clyde Dawson.
Yeah, he's the fucking doctor.
Can I shoot him?
Yeah. Yeah, this is the end. The very end.
I didn't shoot him. I'm assuming
I
you
did.
shot him.
Yeah, come on, we gotta go.
Oh god.
We have to run from him now.
Why is there chasing?
Because that's how it works. So close, I fucked up because I went the wrong way. I was almost there though. Shit. Fuck, what? Okay, game. It fucked me up. You got me killed. Yeah. So you gotta go underneath that, make a left. Okay.
I suck at crouching in this game.
I don't know. Fuck it. Once like that. Got me.
I went the wrong way. Okay, so it's the other way. Got it.
Yeah.
We'll get this. Who's he looking at? I'm curious.
kills the doppelganger, and then yeah, kills himself.
Anyway.
So that happened. So yeah, that happened. And our shift is done. We may leave.
I don't think there's any mess.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, this one will blow up there, but other than that, we're good.
Yeah, no, we did pretty good.
We sure did. Last night went pretty well. Time to bounce. Who the fuck is it? Oh, that's you. Who the fuck's this guy? That was my damn mind.
It happens.
Yeah. Doesn't matter, we still beat it. 269, let's go. Pay the bill. And we win. True ending.
Oh, we get to have. Oh, that's cute.
After weeks of desperately scraping together the money, you finally earned enough for Slater's life-saving surgery. The operation was a success. You feel your chest loosen. Clyde Dawson still drops by from time to time, bringing cheap beer and old stories. You never mentioned what you saw during that final night at the gas station. The save file was changed to post-story mode. You may continue playing endlessly. Slater will join you in all future shifts. Yeah, so to get the true ending, you have to save your dog, but also you can't get Clyde killed. But if you get Clyde killed, you get the bad, I guess, the other ending.
Oh, that's cool.
All I hear. Because it is just endless night, which we can just do with everybody. Just keep going.
Yeah.
But that was Shift to Midnight. I hope you enjoyed it.
I liked it.
Good. Now I gotta get you headshots and shit so I can send you later for the pictures.
Yeah, I'm gonna head off because I have to go to the bathroom now. Really badly.
I am also gonna head off because I'm gonna go get food. I'm hungry. Alright. Alright, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and watching me play the game again. I know we went through the story mode again, but you know what? It was fun, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, without further ado, I'm gonna go raid Nico. Cause why not? And we're going night. And I appreciate all of you. Ganger Bender. You're crazy. And hope you guys had fun. And if you didn't have fun, well, what the fuck is wrong with you? You should have had fun. Tomorrow, I will be streaming. I'll probably do some just chatting, and then maybe we'll hop into either Mortal Shell 2 or play something different. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe some Fortnite. But, well, maybe get the Fortnite event, but that'll be later in the day. Not like early. So, it is what it is. But anyways, let me switch to my just and make sure my of course my just chatting screen makes me sorry fucking right side. What the fuck? Wrong direction, fam. Anyway. This Foxu is out. I will see you in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And I can't wait to do more in the future, obviously. And I gotta fix where this position is. I don't even know where the fuck. I don't even know. You know, I'll figure it out later. It's not important right now. If you're not, just do that. Boom. All right. Anyways, see you guys in the next one. Hopefully, it is raining. I think. If it would fucking tell me. Wrong direction. I know. All right. See you guys later. Bye.